All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, some places, right? It is Friday, February 14th, the wonderful Valentine's Day. Let's, if one thing everyone knows on Valentine's Day, you draw pictures and look at art, right? Is that the saying, right? I think so. So let's do that together. My throat is super off today. I apologize. Hopefully some coffee will help that. Maybe, hopefully. I don't know. Either way, let's get started, shall we? Good morning. Little messy here in that my eyes are weirdly like puffy and my throat is scratchy. Fun stuff, fun stuff. But it's a great day because it's Valentine's Day, right? Oi, okay. So one thing actually, hold on, my mic keeps screwing up. Looks like everything's okay. Elgato had an update with Wavelink not too long ago. And so with that update, a lot of things kind of got desynced with a lot of stuff. And so like even my microphone wasn't defaulting to the right settings and all that kind of stuff. So I keep double checking when things feel like they're not coming through right, but they are. No worries. But yeah, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. It is Friday too, so it's like a double win, right? End of the week and Valentine's Day, which to me, is the day of chocolate. So it's funny that even still, I've got my Dove chocolate. Dove tries to rip you off on holidays, though, man. Just get the old normal chocolates. I don't need it in the shape of a heart. It's less chocolate and more expensive. Give me that big old rectangle. I don't care. It'll clog my heart, Same difference. All right. I do have 5 things up. And as usual, I also have a toy thing up. It was interesting. So let's go take a peek, right? So I have talked about this many times. I don't have them open. They're sitting on the kitchen table right now still. I did open one of my new figures the other day. Finally. It's sitting behind me. I didn't put him in the anthropomorphic shelf yet, just because I want to put the infantry guys there too. But this is, let me grab him. Let me just roll around like a big fella from Wall-E. This is Pale, his name. So he probably can't see him too great on camera. But he's from Spiro Toys. They do what's called the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. So let me block my own face so you can kind of... It's hard because he's gray and I'm wearing gray, right? But you can see he's pretty cool, right? They've got a whole line of these Animal Warriors. They have all different armors and different things like this. But this was by far and large what girlfriend and I totally agreed is their best one, at least from the start. They're releasing new ones as time goes on. But yeah, he is dope. I love the way he turned out. Poses really well. He plays. He's fun to play with, right? He's one of those kind of figures that just feels good. But for now, he lives on the arcade cabinet in the corner where you can't see him. And where he will finally live, you also won't be able to see him because he's in the Detolf over there, which is not on camera. Maybe one day, if I can set up multiple cameras so we can get some cool angles for the YouTube content that I plan on doing. I wanted a camera right there, so it can be coming here, so we can see the art more. And I wanted a camera there, so we can see the toys in arcade cabinet more. Just for like different cuts, right? I think it'll look cool. But I'm like stalking cameras on Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that, so I'm not gonna spend real money on it. F that. No way, no how. I still am waiting on that one guy who I was supposed to trade some old statues for. But he had COVID and the flu and was hospitalized and basically was dead for a while. So Anyway, back to what I was talking about. I've got these guys downstairs. Talked about them a lot. The Ninian Infantry, right? I love them. They look so good. I'm like, yeah, hopefully this weekend I make time to open them up because I am digging them. But so they do, Mythic Legions does what is called the retailer appreciation wave, where it's like retailer specific ones that they make that are like a big wave every year or whatever. And it usually pulls from different exclusives from the previous year, right? And so this year, the wave included, I can show you the other ones. So it's got the other Figure Obscura ones. So you've got Frankenstein, you've got Bastet and Anubis. You've got the Ghost of Christmas Past, and then the Legion Trooper, which all look cool, right? The Legion Trooper looks pretty cool. I like the new Cosmic Legion stuff. I really like this one actually, but not $50. Like, especially when they're coming out with this kind of stuff. Like, look at this bad guy. Look at this. Look at this. This is $35. That's a steal. Like, they're getting amazing. But anyway, I digress because this, right? Vernalis Arden Scale, right? He is exclusive. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing more Snake Men. And I love this like wizardy snake person energy, right? And I love this. Look, like the staff and the fire like eagle aren't like what sell it for me. It's literally the fire snake. Look at that. It's a snake conjuring a fire snake. He's like so unoriginal. He's like, I don't effing know, man. What do I make out of my fire? Like a snake or something? It's like a human just making a human blob shape of fire. Which Amos is very different in this sense. But I think he looks dope. I actually don't know what those are. Those shoulder pads? Oh yeah, he's got little shoulders if he wants. Or he can have no shoulders, I guess. Is that? Yeah. But yeah, I don't know how much I like him compared to the other snakes, because the other snakes have like white and reds and blues, and they feel more like exotic snake-like, where this is just all green, and I don't know if that's doing it. Like, I get the idea of him being more of like a forest snake energy, right? But yeah, I thought that was cool. That popped up this morning. But again, I don't know. $50 is always pretty steep if it's not one you're super sold on. But I do love Mythic Legions, and they're all wire soft goods, which makes posing things really fun and can always look way more dynamic than it even is, just because you can. Sorry, bunch of notifications. Right. So the first one on here, I just saw this, and I always see a lot of swords and weaponry and designs we've talked about before. But this one caught my eye. It looks adorable. It's food. It's the hilt is the fork. The plate is the actual pasta with the sauce dripping down, and you've got the little leaves, and then the same motif but in the shield with the fork sticking out. And then you've got it more with the ramen kind of energy instead of, you got the Italian, you got the Japanese, you got it all. The best of both worlds in weapon form. And it even looks. So you've got the sword, and this looks more traditional European sword, right? Whereas then you have a more Eastern sword with the ramen, which is, I guess, a literal chef's kiss, right? Does that fit since it's food, the chef's kiss? I like this. It's cute. It's a fun idea. I'm always down for like silly ideas. Oh my gosh. And this guy does a lot of silly ideas. What are we looking at here? A bunch of video game things, a sandwich gun, a shrimp gun. What is this mastermind? I don't even know where to start. Like, there's so many that I want to click on and look at. I'm just like taking it all in, all these silly food combos. Like, they're almost like Transformers as food with, I'm like enamored with all of this. Holy cow. Pepsi pistol. I don't like that. let's look at a couple of these. I am immediately following Zhang right here. Let's see. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot these type of cases even existed for CDs. The singular, like, malleable plastic energy. Oh my gosh. And it's like a portable Dreamcast where you put the disc in the... Oh my gosh. An iPod, but it can switch around and it's like the little Game & Watch. Oh my goodness. I think what this means is we need more official handheld consoles, right? I need the Switch too, so bad. But stuff like this gets me so excited seeing these cool designs. I love this. This is adorable. The ear pods pop out of the side of the controller like that. It's like a hologram built into it. It's got a little toggle if you want it to be more of a 2D or a 3D. Oh, gorgeous. It shoots pickles. This sandwich gun. But this looks more phallic. I don't... This is supposed to be a hot dog? That's real phallic there, buddy. Sausage as howitzers. Okay. Yeah, that's a little sus right there. That's a little... I don't know if I feel that much. I'll give it a like, but that's not my favorite. This is funnier. I like this. The shell casing, but then the bullet is the actual, like, tail, and it's, like, in it. In the lobster. I like it. I like it. And this was just, they had some character work too, other than these silly backs and stuff. I just wanted to see what that energy was. Excuse me. And I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, this was a fun one. On a very different side here is a giant griffin with a traditional red and blue knight energy. I like this. Again, a lot of use of, like we talked about the last time, a lot of simple brushes, right? Like it looks like very much just a use of like a rake, like the scraping kind, and a hard round with what looks to, you got like a grainy one, but then the hard round has like a, I can't remember what it's called, the technical thing, but it changes per, so when you're actually drawing a line, right, it's actually that same image repeated 1,000 times or however many times you have it spread. And so what this brush does, you can change it. I've got one in Procreate that does, I set mine to do this. It changes hue or saturation or value by a certain percentage threshold each time it makes that circle or each time it makes that image. And so that's what's definitely happening here. These are just single brush strokes that give these really, that's smart. That's really smart use of that brush to allude to feathers. I never thought of it that way. Because, like, you draw a couple tufts, you draw still the shadows and stuff. But then using a brush like that here in the open space, right, where we don't have any definition. There's no definition of feathers. But because we see the other feather shapes and the hard shadows, because they're using that brush where it has that variety in it, that slight discrepancy between each value, it just feels like it's like a simplified version of that. Like you actually would see feathers. That's cool. I am probably going to steal that one day. Put it in the bank. I already follow this person. And looking at it, I'm not surprised. Because the stuff is intense. Like super intense. Holy Stromboli. Whoa. I couldn't tell you what it was that made me follow this person. Everything. Ah, a good Wukong is always. Look at that. I love that. So, like, if we look close at, like, he is warm as warm can be, right? Like, if we're looking at his colors, he is red, and even his blue, the cool blue, has, like, a little warmth to it. That he is just very warm colored. Contrast to them, this stark white and blue here. Very different blues, right? sky blue in this, but they still feel the same energy. But yeah, that it makes him pop so well that even his face is very, obviously the skin is pigmented with all the blood behind it, but that looks so good. I love too when you do, like, there's clearly clouds, right? The idea it's you know, Wukong is up in the sky doing whatever, jumping high, flying on Nimbus. But when you use the background as also like a visual element for the character, so the way he's swinging and it's like obscuring his leg, obscuring the space around him, it's like he's manifesting the clouds around him. So yes, it's a background, but also it's a storytelling foreground element too. That's cool. And I love when people do this kind of stuff, right? Like his leg and the back, none of this is really rendered, right? Like that's not cleanly rendered, but it's smartly not rendered, right? What we see here, like the hand isn't as rendered because it's in motion, it's got a lot going on, but then it gets more clean. This area right here, super rendered his face, right? If we were to zoom in, his face is, oh, we can't really zoom in too much, but his face is really, really rendered out, and same with all this intricate armor. And so the eye gets attracted to this space, and everything else looks right still. Obviously, it's well rendered, but like if we look at this leg versus like this shoulder, very different levels of rendering. And yeah, I love when people can pull that off. My brain is so comic booky and less painterly that when people are able to do that, I'm always impressed. With like badass Kung Fu Panda energy. Man, that was good. Oof. I'm surprised I didn't like these ones already. It's just a powerful pose, right? Super strong looking. Again, same idea with the rendering, right? That this background is very soft. Softly rendered, you know, with basic shapes and stuff, but so effective. Anyway, speaking of backgrounds, let's look at Etienne Savoy's trees. These are cool. I love a good like exploration of environmental pieces, and this is a good one. Just a bunch of weird tree shapes. You got round, you got square, you got palm, you got like the, I don't remember what that type of the flowers are, the leaves. Not like necessarily like a weeping willow, but like similar energy. You got more like pine. But all different shapes. So this one's got like, oh, excuse me, almost like a, it's the seed is, it's growing directly out of the seed, which is cool. I think I talked about, because like in my old, one of my old job things, I made a lot of trees. So like a lot of these trees in the background were all made, I made all of them. And it was trying to simplify the shapes to fit the energy of our game, which was harder than I thought it would be, right? Like trying to make trees that I didn't want to be super like in your face, right? Because trees are supposed to be set back, nothing crazy, right? In this context. And so they needed to be simplified and almost Dr. Seussical in the sense of their oversimplification. And so I tried to make them all giant, like clumps, like huge clumps, right? With windy shapes. Because really, when you're working in 3D, I'm not making all of these trees, right? I make 4, I think, 4 to 7 maybe different trees. And then you just shape, you adjust them, you flip them horizontal, you know, you mirror them, you do different things, and you balance them in such a way that like when you put them on the scene, then it hopefully doesn't look like you're just making the same trees, because that's not, you know, video games now, some of them have more of procedurally generated systems that would allow for more realistic trees, or even procedurally generated 3D ones, like or stylized ones. But the way we did it in this game, since we were mobile gaming as well as console, it needed to be very low poly. And so these are actually like each tree then. So you do it. So what you do is I sculpted the tree in 3D. I then painted it, obviously, and textured it. But then I threw it into, I think, Marmoset or Maya, don't remember, to render them. And I just rendered them very cleanly, a couple of them from just different angles. So, like, that's what I said, being economical. If I made 4 trees, I got like 7 or 8 renders because I tried to make it so that if you rotated the tree 180 degrees, excuse me, the shape language read very differently, right? Whether it was the branches coming out on the bottoms or the angle you built things at so that the actual silhouette changed quite drastically when rotated and all that kind of stuff. And so then you have flat images, right? And then you basically make planes, like very simple planes with alpha. So they're just cards. It's usually two polygons and they fold. You fold them a little bit so they have some depth when you look at them in a parallaxing space. But so basically you slap them on essentially like a piece of paper then. And it's just a texture gets repeated. So really it needs to be pretty simplified, the trees here. But so it just reminded me of that individuals when I was working with these trees. That was a fun challenge getting those trees. Something different, you know? And then I did all the vegetation in the same way with that then, like the flowers and the lily pads and stuff like that. But I digress. I don't give a crap about my work. I want to look at this guy's cool stuff. Oh, which cool stuff indeed. Look at these environments. I remember looking at, oh my gosh. That's why one of my best friends did this in 3D. So it was this guy's thing. And my goodness, my friend's piece blew up. Like it actually got really relatively viral in the internet worlds, in the art side of things. I was wondering if he commented on here that I could have looked at what he did. Either way, it turned out great. And he had a great concept to work from. And that's funny that we stumbled on his stuff. I do remember this because when I was looking at doing some more portfolio 3D stuff, I wanted to do this. Something about this piece just screamed fun. Right? Like you could make so many, talking about like asset building, right? That you do for environments. Like being able to build out like maybe just like 3 different pumpkins in these shapes and kind of play with them and place them around. Or make a couple different candles and get them plopped all around. More of their trees and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. When I dive back into 3D at one point in my life, which is not right now because I've been doing more 2D, this is still one of my top runners if I really want to model that. It just looks fun. Like sometimes you look at things and you know you'd enjoy making them, right? And quite frankly, all of his stuff I think I would enjoy making. Like there's something cathartic about making environmental pieces as opposed to organic characters, because characters exist in such a different space mentally when you're creating them. Whereas there's something so peaceful. There's something I think I've talked about, like making wood and basic shapes like that, but then just being able to like paint them and detail them in such a way that they feel more than they are. I don't know. It just feels good. I really like that feeling. So maybe I'll get back to that one day and we'll do some 3D stuff on stream maybe. 3D stuff is harder, I feel like, to showcase as you stream it, though. Because 3D stuff can look really... If nobody makes 3D, they don't know the process, but, like, it can go from really boring and ugly to finally something cool, and it takes a while. But in this case, if you're working with basic shapes like this, I feel like you could probably block it in pretty quickly and still look nice. This is the only thing with characters I saw. Like, other than, like, this, I guess. Cute. Yeah, love this. Absolutely love it. The Clash Royale, did they do the art. What did they? Oh, so they like did the designs, not necessarily the final. I took care of color, lighting, and final rendering. Oh, cool. Supercell's got such an adorable aesthetic. Dope. I would say I follow him, but too late. Already am. Okay. We're moving along because it's already 11. I don't know what was going on here, but I loved it. It just looked cute as heck. It's like this little corgi in the snow, and you can't. At first, I thought he was a giant corgi, but no, it's just mice inside like a toy, like snowplow, and they broke the steering wheel. What a fun idea! Like, yeah, and the way that they did the strap, right? That strap makes it look like a smile, doesn't it? 100%. That dog looks like he's smiling. Hey, I know, right? It's super cute. But yeah, I have no idea what this person. I already followed them, so I'm sure they've got some other cool stuff that I've liked. Then very similar, extremely cute animal stuff. Holy cow! I like the way that they have been doing this. Like they use that shape for the mouth, even when a mouth doesn't exist. Cute. That's cool too. We've talked about like the people's use of brushes a lot. And this person has a great example of that. Like, look at this. Like, some of this isn't even like stroking the brush. It's just almost like a sponge, right? And that is extremely effective in blocking in these colors without doing too much. These feel very much like viz dev pieces for like an animated movie or something. Like you could totally see these becoming 3D and fully realized, right? Yeah, something about these kind of things, like they're just, you know how sometimes you've got a hard way to verbalize why something is pleasing, but like something like, but you just look at it and you're like, this is good. I feel like this art style is that, where I just look at it and I'm like, this makes me feel good. It's cute, it's warm, and it's so soft and like pastel vibes that it just feels nice. They do. They all look so happy, which is something we need in this world, is happy. Even like these goofy, like this weird, like he still looks cute, even though it's like a raccoon snagging some pizza. Like even the things that don't necessarily look, like that guy looks unhappy, but it's like a cute scowly unhappy still. Like, yeah, this is good energy in the world. Who is this? Lin Chen from LA, no less. Okay. So one of the things we note a lot is 9 times out of 10 when we look at these really cool artists and the things they do here on ArtStation, just, you know, in the mornings, they're never from the US. They're almost always from somewhere in Europe, usually Poland or Russia or the Ukraine, because they have such better art history, art classes. The government supports it so differently. And so it's refreshing to see at least some of these people not be, you know, outside of the US. Not to say they always are, but I always like it when the artists include their own, like, so this is like the little Cintiq and the stylus that these little, and they're all just, oh, it's for Wacom. That makes sense. That was literally made as an illustration for the company that makes those. Oh my gosh, I could look at these all day, but I'm already past our timeline. Okay, so the last one is this 3D model. Very booby heavy, 100%. But since I drew Malice myself not too long ago and was doing my breakdown of her for my Lauren design stuff, I saw this and I couldn't not click on it. It's Malice. Do they have a 3D? Okay, a turnaround. Oh, I wanted to see the back. Like, because I don't know how they resolved a lot of the stuff, because she's got an intricate design as we've looked at before, and so I was curious how they resolved a lot of the things with her back and how, like, these scarf things come from. Because in the design, if you guys remember when I did it originally, it's actually a scarf that wraps around that becomes then the drapery and stuff like that. But this one just looks like they're just kind of cape pieces, so I was curious how they, like, where these come from. Either way, very creepy. The eyes have some weird energy. Do I follow this person? It's always risky clicking on some of these though. Like, ooh, yeah, I had a feeling it was gonna be very like creepy energy. I don't do creepy. If we all know that, I don't do creepy. It creeps me out. Not my thing. But it looks like they worked on The Shape of Water. They did on the Netflix series. Okay. They work with McFarlane Toys for Batman and stuff like that. Still very creepy energy though. Not quite my vibes. I totally forgot this movie existed. The Shape of Water. I only had heard of it. I never actually watched anything, like even trailers. So I guess I didn't even realize it had a giant water monster in it. Very Abe Sapien-esque. Wow, spoilers. Does she become... Now I don't have to watch the movie. Nikita. Oh, we didn't look. Where are they from? Canada. Of course, of course, of course. Oh, this is gross. Oh my gosh. Something about when you see muscles, the muscle pieces and we went from that last person, Ken, who made like the cutest, sweetest, warmest, most inviting things, to now this guy making like literal death. Oh, that was a whiplash. But that's art for you. I did really like the Netflix TV show. I know people didn't. Yeah, changed the vibes for sure. But then let's look at a toy still. Okay, so was this action figure? Okay, he looked like he didn't. So when I watch a lot of people sculpt, they sculpt from the ground up almost, like knowing full well it's going to be an action figure. I wonder if this person doesn't look like they've done a lot of action figure work, because I thought this one was going to actually be a statue. Because normally they design the body shapes knowing how that's going to cut already. Then I'm guessing somebody else obviously goes in at McFarlane then and does all of those. Interesting ways too to see like the design changes from then his design to the actual toy. So like the first thing I see is the shoulders, right? These shoulders look so much more minuscule. Like that looks cool. Like I like these big spikes. Really breaks the silhouette and accentuates the cape and the cowl on the shoulder. Whereas on the toy, whether just by manufacturing or they changed it purposefully, doesn't have the same impact, right? It feels much more like flat. Otherwise, I feel like the energy is pretty similar. I feel like McFarlane does a good job of their face sculpts, especially with Batman, because like you don't have that much face to have to to actually print out. Like it's just a chin. Can you do a big butt chin? Yep, cool. That's Batman. Yeah. And the cuts aren't that bad, like, because a lot of toys, you know, sometimes you feel very toy-like. But if we look, the knees are pretty well cut. The biceps into the elbow always look kind of weird, but not too bad the way this is designed, actually. I like it. I like it. I like it. I don't know if I want to follow that, though, just because I don't know if I want jump scare creepiness in my my feed. I think that's a little too much. Too much for me. I like cutesy, fun, and all that stuff. Anyway, let's get the iPad set up now and see where we are at. As usual, it just takes a sec to set up. I've got too many cables, too many things over here, but again, like I said, this is the most efficient way to do it, even though it's a little messy. But today we were gonna finish up Psylocke, hopefully. So I know last stream I had mentioned I might work on it offline a little bit. Guess what? I did not. I didn't work on it online or offline at all. Been busy with other stuff and did not make the time and wasn't in the mood, frankly. And if you're not in the mood, don't force it, right? That said, I'm about to force it. let's get this done, right? So let me plug in one more thing here. So again, background music today, I'm going with, I've been listening to a lot of the lo-fi stuff to the point where like, I really just vibe with it. I never used to listen to like this like more instrumental lo-fi music. I never really gave it a shot, but now lately, putting it on stream and just having it on in the background and stuff, I see the appeal. You know how sometimes like you just kind of have to commit to a thing to grasp why it's cool or why you enjoy it, right? And that is definitely the case here. So we've got the iPad all plugged in, all good to go. Now I need to grab my little, so I've gotten in the habit, I used to never use it, right? Normal pen, right? The Apple Pencil. But then I've got this little rubber guy. And I love using him now because the more like using it for longer extended times, it really like your hand cramps up. This pencil is so little that like you need this little bit of extra oomph, right? Just a little bit. But it gives your hand less more breathing room to not cramp up and feel like crap after hours of drawing. My thing always was that it doesn't have the ability to charge. So you can't plop this bad boy on the iPad anymore because there's no flat surface for it to magnetically attach and charge. But if you're sitting here drawing for, 4 hours, 2 hours, half hour, whatever, doesn't matter. You're not charging the pencil. So right now I'm just pulling back up Psylocke just to have her in the background. Really, I don't really need to look at her design much anymore, I don't think. If anything, I might pull up reference to see what her little, like butterfly energy effects are. Because that is something I wanted to do for her left hand. I was getting these up. But yeah, so as we see here, like I said, this was the last one from last week that I never, on Friday, that I just kind of, I'll finish her, right? I keep wanting to finish this one, but I just haven't. I wanted to do Psylocke this time. But she's definitely, making progress, this piece. But for now, oh, and so I think one of the other ones, since we're sticking with Marvel Rivals, I kind of want to adopt this one, this pose here, and make it more for Squirrel Girl, and really playful with that. Don't mind me, I'm just getting distracted looking at a couple of things on Marvel Rivals. So I guess one thing I wanted to, this was super cute. Look at this, hold on. So they've got a new, for Valentine's Day, they did the anniversary for Reed and Invisible Woman. And they get you where it's like the bundle is way cheaper. But I'm not actually buying it. But it was so cute. Like, it's such a fun idea. And so random in an aggressive, Marvel fighting action game, whatever, shooting game, that then it's and then there's a wedding little thing, super cute. And they've got each character has their different skin, different nameplates. Their sprays are the rings. And look at that. It's a 4 in it. Come on. So cute. But yeah, they've been absolutely killing it with the cosmetics. Except for this. This is boring. Why do I care? Are people really spending a couple dollars on that for the movie? I hope not. But you do you, man. Anyway, just pulling her back up just so we've got her in the background up on top a little bit now. So again, we're working with the Psylocke skin because it's based off of the old comic, but I'm also kind of tweaking it just a smidge. But yeah, so she'll be up there. Just so we've got something on the top corner anyway to look at. But anyway, the actual drawing here with her booty just hanging out. So I'm trying to remember where we left off, like what I was addressing on Wednesday, like what I wanted to fix or solve. Because sometimes I'll draw it, I'll step back, I'll look at it, and I'll be like, ah, of course, I need to blank. Not sure. Because we did resolve a lot of the things. Oh, that's what I was going to change. So we had sat here and we hee-hawed about her eye, right? So this eye, for those that don't know, Psylocke has like a marking on her face sometimes. In the old designs, she doesn't, but in newer designs, sometimes it's permanently there. But other times it only appears as like half of a butterfly in like energy form because she's like with like that right there, like the psionic energy. But so what Rivals did is they actually made it like a tattoo on her face. And for those that don't know, then it almost just looks like she's got like almost a black eye or something. And it just gets really hard to see what's happening. And I kept trying to figure out the best way to include that. And I think the best way to include it is to not include it. Because it's just sometimes you can try and try and try, but it's not going to work. And I think this is a prime example of that where it's not working, so I don't need to keep trying to make it work. I tried, we tried, didn't like it, and that's okay. Sometimes you can't sacrifice the look to appease the design, right? If we're working with illustration stuff like this, you don't need, if you need to fudge it a little and get rid of a thing or change something, if it helps the overall image, it's probably worth it. That's my rule of thumb. And it's not like this is like some officially sponsored piece that needs to be completely accurate and, you know, on model for the brand, right? This is just for us. So why stress over a thing that isn't working when you can simplify it then? So I think that looks a lot better. Like a lot better, just because the other one it got so messy looking, right? Not that it looked bad, it just became hard to read. And if you get things that are hard to read, that's like defeating the point of half of what we're doing. You want to look at it, you want it to read, you want it to look good. So let's go and change the colors that I blocked in then, because obviously we do not need that pink there anymore. So let's hope. Ah, crap, I have to paint that in, don't I? I do. Because if you remember, we talked about when you fill in color, because these lines here by the eye, where the eyeshadow is, they don't connect and make a closed off loop. It will fill that space. And since we're just blocking in colors, I don't want to do the fill, because here, I'll show you. It'll fill everything. And I don't want to do that right now, since we're later already in blocking things in. So just quickly paint it in the color. When you're doing stuff like this, like, yes, I use a different brush to paint, but when you're just getting the job done in an instance like this, right, where you're just kind of touching up, there's no need, right? All the brushes push out pixels, and if you're just filling space, it's not like you can really tell the texture that's there or isn't there. That reads a lot better with her face then. Though I worry if this is needed here. I wonder if this is just filled as well. If it'll look better. Or if we adjust her Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we adjust the nose. Let's see. So there's two options when you've got something like this, right? I want to extend her eye to look, because right now this is like needless detail. This little bit of skin tone between here, it just doesn't read well from far away. Like, why is it there? So there's two options. One is we fill it with purple and we get rid of the black line, right? Or two, which I don't know if this will look as nice, so we'll try it and see. I kind of like this, the other idea first, so we'll see. The other idea, though, would be to get to the right brush first of all, and then actually adjust the ridge to account for that sharper angle instead. So that actually will be like that. But I don't know if that's too big of a space then, you know, between. Or if you find the middle ground then, I think that might be our best bet, right? So we do both. We cut it a little bit so it stays about the same. And then we also get rid of this line. So so we had two options, right? And we said, what if we do both of them? And I think that reads the best then probably, because that way we keep the general shape of the nose without sacrificing too much of that brow shape, but also we don't overdo it by making that purple too overpowering of a space. So let's zoom out and see how that reads better at first glance, especially once we get values in there. I think that'll read better. Cool beans. So, trying to look if there's anything else design-wise before we start actually looking at color then. Thank you. I know sometimes it's these little changes that help make or break a thing. And it's sometimes very annoying when you can't figure out that little thing you need to do. And you just like, I'll sit here for an hour, right? And you just keep looking at it and you don't know what it is that needs to be fixed. And I think that's what makes the repetitions of doing stuff more worth it, right? The more you do something, whether it's art, whether it's a sport, whether it's a craft, whether it's whatever, right? Getting in the reps of doing it so many times, right? The more you do a thing, the more your brain can course correct it. And you know, oh, I'm more apt at picking up these little subtle changes that need to be made. Or with cooking, right? Cooking's a fantastic example. I don't know how to cook, but great cooks can be making something and be like, actually, this needs a little bit more acid, or this, because they know, and they know exactly what to put in to balance that flavor and do that because they put in the reps, right? They put in the work over and over and over and over and over again, and they've made mistakes over and over and over and over and over again, so they know how to fix them. But yeah, so I think that works. I think the one thing I was hee-hawing last time was if we do some sort of sash, right? So her like scarfy sash thing is pretty big. And I think in my original sketch, I don't remember if I even had anything in the original sketch. I think I did not. But I hee-hawed it as well. And when we blocked it in, the colors, I did think a little bit of red might look good. So let's see real quick if that still holds true now that she's pretty much finished up. So like realistically, the red would be coming somewhere down here. So I'm just going to block in some color to see if this would look too distracting, having a little bit of another color, and if it breaks the silhouette. So a very important thing on most 2D illustrations then, and 3D work too, but like especially with 2D, is how well does the silhouette read, right? So if I squint, if I look far away, if I do whatever, does it still look right? And so the silhouette plays a massive part of that. And so you don't want to add things that are going to mess with the silhouette. And that's what I worry about here. That the way I design this, having a sash around here just doesn't, something about it doesn't seem like it's going to read the way I want it to. But I wonder if instead we have it come from above her butt a little bit. That way it kind of has its own, I don't know. It's hard when you work on a piece and then you need to add something, because you've been looking at it for so long in such a singular way that then any change feels very different. And it's hard to step back and say, is this change good or is it bad? And is it bad because it's actually bad, or is it bad because my brain has looked at it in the same way for so long that now it's not bad, it's just different, but my brain says different is bad in this sense, you know? But I do think, looking at this, maybe a little, so if we have 1 and 2 different little spots, they're almost the same size though. That's not, we've talked about, like, if everything's the same size, nothing feels special, right? And so that's kind of what I'm running into right here. And again, I'm constantly with this kind of stuff thinking, where do I cover? So like right here, I'm thinking, do I want to make this connect to the hand? So this negative space, or do you keep negative space, right? To make it more visually intriguing. I don't have the answer. I'm sometimes you just kind of have to keep doing it and see what works and what doesn't. Something about the curve of this though doesn't feel as natural to me as the rest. So I wonder if we kind of, since the angle of her hips down into her butt here does make more of a flat shape, I wonder if we can give this then a heavier curve and it'll read okay. The cloth, a heavier curve. Because it's not really contrasting too much with the butt and the hip area. Don't know. And then like this, do we make it thinner so there actually is negative space between? I kind of like that. Usually making negative space like that is a gamble. Because like we talked about up here with the eye, if you have too little of an inset or something like that, it just doesn't read and it looks busy. But something like this, I think, is okay. Like, I'm not too mad about a shape like this. So I think we can fudge this, but I don't like, so like this negative space here, I think will be filled with a black space anyway, so that doesn't really matter. I don't like this here. It feels weird. Wonder if we accentuate, like go along the curve instead. So like right now that curve is going against the curve that we've got established with her bump in her butt. So I wonder if we kind of mirror the curve of the way her butt's shaped so that it doesn't, it's not so distracting then. Because if you remember many streams back, one of the things we noted when we were breaking down some art styles of other artists, one of the things that David Liu, I think it was, right? The artist, he did really interestingly that I loved, right? Was his use of curve for the breast into the lats. Because then if you keep that curve the same, so we talked about, if you remember, like, if the upper body was shaped like here's the lats and like the abs or whatever here, right? Cool. What he did was he kept the breast. This is obviously a weird example. He mirrored almost the curve always on this side. Whatever side the lat was showing, he mirrored it. so that it felt like it fit in that space better, right? So this red. And I really liked that. That resonated with me really well. And I feel like that's something that works. So if you're trying to accentuate a curve, like that way the breast curve still is very accentuated because of this, but then you're not pushing the breast, you're just accentuating all of the curve around it. And I think that works really well. And not just obviously for the female enemy, any shape, but we're just obviously working with that right now. But that thought process can be applied to most everything with shape language. Excuse me. So just trying to kind of maybe keep a similar curve here. Not exactly, because if you do exactly the same curve, then it looks ugly. Then it looks like it's too parallel, right? But at least just a little. So I wonder here, we're getting a little too in the weeds with the color. I wonder if I just start blocking in with the pen now. And that'll read better, because right now it's getting too samey. So let's just go ahead. Let's use a pen. Like I said, I was thinking if we do something here, we would just block it, right? So even if it's a smaller space of red and there would be a gap, we just fill it with shadow. Nobody needs to see the empty space. Negative space there's too busy. So no, thank you. And this is a prime example too, where the way I like to do my inks with like a heavy brush, right? We wouldn't even see a lot of this because I want to cover it. So that's why I'm like, well, we can't just keep looking at it in a vacuum, right? We need to see what it would actually look like. And I think that helps a lot. Yeah, I think this negative space here between the sword, the cloth, and the butt reads okay. That was my biggest worry. Yeah, that kind of works. It's always a fine line because I want to like allude to the shape moving, right? The big cloth, but you don't want to start adding too much because then, again, we've talked about sometimes less is more. Where in here, I don't want too much, but it's okay to contrast a lot of darks, I feel like, because we have a lot of intricate detail here in the sword and then a very big splotch of just not flat color, but like not a lot of detail. So I kind of am okay with adding this strong amount of darks all along here because it helps frame the rest of the stuff going on by offsetting it with a lot of darks. And by darks, I mean like this straight up black. So, as we established, it is Friday, Valentine's Day. Oh, but I did look. It's so for those of you that don't know, every hour to keep me well fed as a a growing young boy, right? I need to always eat my little bit of chocolate because on stream I used to never eat for the longest time, and it would be like 3 hours plus, and like I hadn't had breakfast for like an hour or two before, and blah blah blah, and I was always hungry. So my resolution was always a little bit of chocolate. Every hour, which was funny. Along many years ago now, I had we've all eaten the Reese's peanut butter cups, right? And we all know that there's a bunch of variations in the holiday seasonal ones. But they're all different. And so if they're different, they all can't taste the same, right? So I had this whole conversation with my aunt because her son is a huge Reese's kid, right? He loves Reese's. I remember my uncle like made like the largest Reese's he could. It was kind of gross, not gonna lie. It was too much. But like that's like a thing. And so I remember I had joked with her. We had talked about like there's got to be one that's better, right? What stands above all in terms of the Reese's shapes? And so there's been more and more shapes over the years, honestly. So I don't know what is true anymore because there's too many. But back then, what she did was she ended up getting one of each and kept them. And she kept giving them to me. And so then I had them all with my friends years ago. And we did a group assessment, right? We had 4. I don't know how many there are now. I'm sure there's more than 4. But we did like the pillars, right? The staples. We had the Christmas tree. We had the pumpkin. We had the heart. And we had the egg. Now, everyone's base assumption was that like, oh, the egg would be the best, right? It's just the most peanut butter cuppy, right? Wrong. I think the general agreement among all of my friends was that oddly enough, the egg, worst one, worst Reese's, because it comes down to a mixture of the chocolate to peanut butter. And so if you think of a normal Reese's, there's a good amount of chocolate and just a little bit of the filling. Where then the egg is like straight up just filling. And sometimes it gets more hard because it's just straight up the filling. Whereas the Christmas tree and the pumpkin, since there's more shape variety, I'm not a foodologist, I don't know. But that idea that like that means there's more bites with chocolate in it. And that means I'm guessing that something happens where the peanut butter inside doesn't harden as quickly, maybe. I don't know. All I know is our general rule of ranking that we made was Christmas tree, pumpkin, heart, egg. Egg being the worst, Christmas tree being the best. And it was funny because like, I don't know, I kind of forgot about it. And then just this morning, one of the friends that was there when we had done this very sophisticated ranking system, she texted, she's like, hey, I mentioned that weird thing that we did with the peanut butter cups to people at work. What was our ranking again? And so she's like, well, I want it to be fair that like they don't get old, right? And that's a fair thing, right? But if you put them in the freezer or the fridge, I feel like that kind of changes with anything. That'll change the flavor, right? Always changes it a little bit. And so we joked. I was like, well, I guess you just have to go full science experiment. She said go full science experiment. And I was like, yep, you need to buy 2 of each then and keep one in a pantry. And the other can go in the fridge or the freezer. And then you do the taste test around Christmas. Because you can get the Valentines obviously now, and then the Easter coming up, and then so on and so forth. So I'd be curious to see what her coworkers, those weird Floridians, how they'd rank it. So right here I'm trying to figure out, so we've talked about tangents before, talking about going on a tangent just a moment ago on peanut butter cups. One of the tangents in art that we talk about is we don't want things to conflict. And it's hard when you've got a spot like this where there's a lot of little lines. And so if you watched me struggle as I was talking about peanut butter cups, there's something about this space that becomes messy because I don't want the cloth to terminate in such a way that it literally just feels like it's sharing that line. That feels weird. Yikes. Mod. But there's not that much space to work with. So this is where I always struggle. Where it's like I don't want to conflict, but I don't want too much. So I wonder if we just keep it like a very minimal. And what I'm thinking while I'm doing this is actually it'll just be a hint of red, but I don't know if it's going to be too little of a hint, right? And so we'll see when we plop in color in a moment. But my thought here is that visually we're kind of completing this circle because we're always looking at how smooth movement can be, right? And this is not maybe, it's not like a one-to-one, this curve. But when you look at it, it kind of has that energy, right? You're kind of finishing that mindset of how these pieces would correlate with one another. And again, if we're trying to accentuate what's already there, if this has a curve here, how do we just kind of keep that energy here, right? Grab red, and let's see. One, I had these bleeding over. Let's fix this. Looks better. It's hard to see on stream, I'm sure, but it's like little stuff like this, right? Where it's like I'm like, oh, let me just paint that in real quick while I'm looking at it, right? Fix when you see it. Don't try and remember to do it later. Because later always comes quicker than you realize, and then you'll forget it. But yeah, so let's see what the red, I already color picked something else. Let's go back and let's see how this red looks. If the gauge here is it too much red? Is it too little red, right? Kind of like it. It's just like a little subtle touch of the red. It's not too much, right? And then it kind of makes it feel like it's not just before we had so much just straight up butt happening that now there's a little bit more going around that space. And I think that helps. Cool. I think we're getting there. I think we can commit to this, right? Let's just merge it down so that it's part of the actual ink layer. That worked out. Now that I'm here, I am noticing a few things I want to change from inking. So like now that we've added more noise here, I feel like this needs some sort of like line. This is just a lot of empty space that I don't really want. So this is a knot, right? This is kind of like the tie. So I'm trying to think of what shape it would be. So trying to conform to that. So like that tells the viewer that, okay, this is actually curved the other way, right? Trying not to be too busy though with it, but just alluding enough. And I think the butt then here, maybe we can terminate with a little more shadow. Just a little. But anyway, what I was saying before I got distracted eating chocolate and all of that, I was saying it's Valentine's Day, right? And so money is not always flowing, right? With families here and there, and everybody's got ups and downs. And right now, money is not super flowing, let's just say, with in my household. And so what we established, my girlfriend and I, was we said no gifts this year for Valentine's Day, just because we always, when we find cute stuff for each other, we usually still, like, that's the weird thing with holidays, is that like when I see something cool for somebody, if I think of them, I usually get it. right? Like not too long ago, I saw something silly that was like, okay, I may not give it to them right away, but I usually get it if it's for friends and stuff like that. Usually I'll get it and just kind of store it away and be like, ooh, this will be fun for Christmas or something like that. But like, if I see something, I usually get something if it's cool for the person. And so we always do that for each other. And so we were like, we don't really need to focus on any gifts this year. And I don't do cards. I'm not a card person. And so she told me, all you do this year, since we're saving money, you get a card. And I was like, all right. And I found a hella cute one. It's adorable. And I wrote all my sweet, fun things inside of there too. But it was very sweet because then I woke up this morning and I had left like a note and stuff like that because she leaves before me. Ooh, that looks ugly. Something about the hand feels like it needs a little more heavy darks. Sorry, as I'm talking, I'm just trying to fix a couple things too, which is always difficult. I'm getting better at using my brain to solve problems in my art, but also using my brain to communicate stories or ideas or techniques and stuff. It's very different. But anyway, I woke up to a bunch of these adorable little hearts cut up. That sounds weird. Like cut up as in like cut out little hearts throughout. And like they were in like the greatest hits of what I do in the morning, right? Like so like where I went to get coffee, there was a cute little one there. And then when I went to go get my protein bar in the morning, there was a little bar there. And then when I went to go fill up my water, there was a little one there. And then of course right here at my desk, there was just a cute little one right there, right on the keyboard. How adorable. Love it. Super sweet. I love it. But yeah, so Valentine's Day gets like a weird rap, right? So Valentine's Day, there's always the, oh, shoot, was I? Okay, I thought I was on the wrong layer as I was doing stuff, which is always heartbreaking when you are. Growing up, I know there were so many friends and stuff that was always like, I'm alone on Valentine's Day, blah, 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 blah. And it has this energy that like Valentine's Day is something about always significant others, right? Like, yes, that is kind of what it's about. And quite frankly, holidays are just made up BS anyway, so they can be about whatever the hell you want. But really, it's about just the people you love, right? It's about positivity. It's about letting people know you care about them. And I think in a world that we live in nowadays, something like that is more important than ever, right? It doesn't need to be your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever, right? You just need to spread love, right? Just spread positivity, spread something today. It doesn't need to be a significant, just smile at someone outside at the grocery store, right? Just something. Be positive and loving, not love in terms of relationship, right? Because the world, I can wholeheartedly say, needs more and more of that, and quite frankly, can never have enough of it, right? We need more of it, and you can't have enough, so why not keep going in, right? That's my Valentine's Day rant of the day. We need to remember to love each other, not just romantically or this or that. We just need to be better. The world will be a better place for it. That said, I also noted, though, be careful. They raise up the price of flowers and chocolates, like crazy. So be economical, too. It is crazy. Like, so I like to pick up flowers for a lot of things, whether it's like someone's hosting something or just out of the blue here and there. Like, I like to get flowers. They're a nice little something to give someone. And as a visual artist myself, I like having that kind of stuff around, right? Like, we have these really cute bouquets that a girlfriend has made that are for the holidays, for each holiday, right? They're just from Michael's. We go through and we find like really nice fake flowers, right? And so we always have bouquets out, even though they're not real, we occasionally have real ones too, but like the idea of just having color everywhere and they smell so nice and all that. But it is wild how much they jump in, like the fact that they can charge so much. Because like I'll go middle of the summer, get something as like a birthday thing or a party favor, not favor, like a hostess gift or something like that, right? And you're like, oh, that was a $20 bouquet or whatever, right? Nothing bonkers, but like, okay, like $20. That same bouquet today on Valentine's Day will be like 40 or at least 35, like something astronomical. And it is wild that that's a thing that's like, yep, that's what we do. I wonder if like that's the flower business. They're okay charging lower throughout the year because they know they recoup so much on Valentine's Day. I would love to see the metrics behind stuff like that because you know it's got to be huge, the amount of sales on days like that. And it's always funny, I almost never see another guy in the floral department ever. Like I never see dudes in there. Not to stereotype, but like generally I very rarely will see another guy there when I'm there. And seeing the amount of clueless looking men though on Valentine's Day and like Mother's Day, like again, it's sweet that they're getting stuff for sure, but it is always very funny how like for New Year's, right? How the gyms are packed on the first month of January and stuff like that. Like it's always like, I appreciate you doing the thing, but it's funny because this seems very out of place for you, right? But hey, flowers are flowers, and if they want to drop double or triple the price, more power to you, right? We're not made of money though. So I'm just going through and inking. So I've been blabbing about random stuff, I know, as I normally do. But I was going through and kind of balancing out some of my line work that I had done. Like I'm okay with the filigree details being pretty thin and consistent line because that's the nature of it, right? But I also want to go through now and make sure like the foot there, that this read in space better. Before I didn't have over here, right, where we're looking. I need to balance the thickness of these lines and make it form around the foot. And I think that's super important that like sometimes people will do line work and just leave it or not even think of line work, frankly. And I really like being, as if anybody's joined me before, I like keeping it like clean but etchy. And I think it is very important to sell a shape that way. So like here we can see that this foot feels like it's rounded in space a little bit just because we've got thicker lines on one side versus the other. We could probably even realistically thin these lines out even more if we really wanted, because they're so far different. Because that one was like a pretty thick line actually. And if we look here, it's messy, and that's fine. I lean into the mess when it comes to this kind of stuff. Not in real life though. I'm a neat freak. But yeah, so that's all I'm looking at right now is taking a second quick pass at these lines, just so that it feels like right here. The problem is this guy is thick, right? That's a really thick line, and this is really messy and sketchy here. But then all of a sudden this line just doesn't seem to fit because it itself is like on an island of how thick it is. It's just very thin and doesn't really fit in that space. So to account for that, I'm kind of balancing out the curve of one line. Here, I'm actually going to get rid of the purple. The colors get distracting sometimes when you're trying to just look at line weight. So to better illustrate it, just get rid of the color. Even if you're on the painting phase and you're reassessing stuff. But what I'm getting at is this guy. Let's give him just a little bit of weight. as we come around the side here, so that the foot matches the other part of the foot. And this is a good example too of where some of this could be thinned out then, because this is really thick line work on both sides. And if we thin part of this out, and again, the way we're going to handle the lighting, I think the lighting is going to be coming from kind of over here, obviously. So usually a thinner line denotes where the light source is coming from, because the thicker line kind of implies it's a shadowed line, right? Like it's got more shape through shadow. I think this is almost just getting too dark, and I think that's part of the, as I'm trying to like solve what's happening here, I think I went a little too dark down in this space. So let's just try and get rid of a little bit of these blacks, just so that there's a little bit more breathing room for everything else. And we'll see how that looks then in a sec. I don't want to get rid of too much, but I feel like it was okay. This becomes very sharp, and that is not the shape of the foot we want. We want, if she's very round, or soft, we got to be careful not to, the only sharp angles then need to be very conscious, right? You can't just be throwing in sharp angles on a piece that's generally soft, because you have to know where, if you have a sharp angle, your eye is going to go there. So you need to choose very wisely where you're putting your sharps, where you're putting your round shapes, where you're putting soft things, right? So that's kind of the logic down there by the foot. I love lines. I know that sounds like it's such a dumb thing to say, but I really like, there's something about clean but sketchy lines like this that always just feel nice. And so when I zoom out, I try and see then, so like we can see the face, right? The body down here has a lot of line variation and depth, whereas I feel like the closer we get to her face, the less there is, right? I feel like the line variety and weight in her hair needs to be addressed. And also possibly in the sword. So the sword actually gets, I kind of want the sword to get less thick of a line the further down we go. But instead it's the opposite at the moment. So I kind of want to, I don't know if we can get too much thinner. So instead of making that part thinner, let's see if we can thicken this line just a smidge. Like we talk about, sometimes if you were looking how to fix point B, right? So point B was the tip of the sword. The tip of the sword looked too thick. And you could sit there and hee-haw over trying to figure out how to make it thicker, thinner, do whatever. But if you're looking at point B, I feel like so many people go back to point A, right? Point A here is the other part of the sword. So everything is a comparison. Everything is a balancing act when you're doing art. So if instead of making the tip of the sword thinner, what if we make the base of the sword thicker? Then by comparison, right, the tip of the sword will appear thinner without actually having to make it thinner. So always, 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 always be bouncing in my head, looking at different shapes in different ways. So I'm just thickening this like center part of the sword up a little bit. Again, just so it kind of feels like it's moving in space, right? If it's supposed to be receding back, I want this front part to just be a little thicker. I don't want the very front where we want the thinner line to be too thick. But again, like we said, it needs to still be a little thicker since we made everything else in the 4-piece thicker. There was a girl I know, I'd never understood this, never knew this phrase before. But she was talking about her size, like physical attributes, right? Of weight and stuff. And she referred to herself as a thicker snicker. A thicker snicker. Like, just a thicker snicker. Just a little bit. She's just a little thicker. And so when I'm drawing lines sometimes like this, my brain goes, it's a little thicker snicker. Just a little bit. Speaking of candy, just a little bit thicker. Okay, but yeah, like I said, so the hair now, I want to quickly peek the hair, and then we'll go, how much time do we got left? I don't even know what time it is. It is noon, so we've got like an hour and a half left still. That's good. So we can kind of play with the thickness of these lines for a sec, right? We'll maybe give like 20 more minutes, and then I can fix up the color, and then I can maybe kind of figure out where the values are coming from. Does this need to be rounded? Okay, so here. I had these little strands. I didn't know for sure if this would read well, but I think it reads well enough. It's not my favorite thing I've ever done, but I think it works having like a little bit of this flow of hair coming over her shoulder and arm just to feel like it's a little more organic rather than just being right behind the arm, right? That little bit of flow breaks the shape of the arm when we paint it, but then also makes it just feel more alive, right? This hair is flowing all around. It's not just a massive chunk in the back there. So what I like to do is I like to differentiate. So if we're looking at the hair, right, and we know generally the light source is coming from our more of the bottom left, right? So we're going to have a primary light source from the bottom left, and then a secondary light source coming from her left hand, so the top right, so from here, because she's got her like psychic effects or whatever, it'll be like a black or a purple, and it'll cause like a nice light rim light of a glow around this space. But the primary light is going to be from here. So we've got it like on the butt, on the leg here. The nice shine of the sword here will be lit, and around here. But so what that means then is where we're looking, where would shadows fall? So if shadows are going to fall, how do I illustrate those with darker, thicker lines? And one way here I'm doing is really making sure the differentiator between where her hair starts and her neck is pretty dark. Because if you think about long hair, right, there's going to be a good amount of shadow that falls in there. And so I really want to make sure first and foremost that there's a nice separation visually for us between those two elements. And so what I'll do is I'll here give just this little bit of extra shadow, extra thicker line there. But I'm still keeping this negative space or positive space then in that sense here to just give a little bit of the neck, right? If it gets too dark, the eye is going to be too drawn there. And even as I zoom out, it's a little too dark. So let's tone it down just a smidge because we were getting a little too heavy-handed. And I feel like my eye was getting too drawn to that location. Part of it could be here too, not just the hair. Like we said, look at the other parts around. This line for the shoulder started looking pretty thick too. So I wonder if we lighten up the line here where the shoulder exists. And then that gives us a little bit more to work with, more real estate essentially up top then, right? So it won't feel as dark. Yeah, that works. Because now it doesn't feel as heavy in that space. The angle is still weird, so I'm going to play with that a second. But yeah, just having this nice bit of dark kind of bleed into it, I think helps. You'll see it more when the color's in, that like it feels nice, because it'll be a nice break of face, like skin, purple, hair. Like all three kind of are represented, but not too heavily. When you're doing shadows on the hair, it is definitely always a tough one, because I feel like on the hair more than anything, it's easy to overdo, right? Because there's so many lines already naturally that you draw with hair to, you know, allude to the different clumps, the shapes, all these things, that your brain's like, I'll thicken this one, and I'll thicken this one, and and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. Be a little more conscious and deliberate with each darker piece you add. Again, the key is always to picture it rolling in space, right? So if this hair is rolling in space, the thickness of the lines will also dictate the roll, right? So thinner, thicker with these curves. So this is more in shadow because it looks like this little guy is like turning around. So we put that in shadow. The same thing could be said right here, not too much, but this piece is more in the front. So then this little bit of hair here would be just a smidge more in shadow. You don't want to make it too thick because we'll compare then, right? So this one should be a little thicker than the bottom one. So we can make this a little thicker, and then this a little thinner, just slightly, so that it balances and it feels like it's moving, right? If something's a little thicker, something's a little thinner, your eye just kind of naturally rolls with it, right? I just realized how bright the light is coming in on the side. Since it snowed and it's got so much snow everywhere, I wonder if it looks better. It doesn't really change much. It's just really bright today because it's a weird thing in the Midwest where you're like, oh, it's kind of gloomy, but then like the second, even if it's like a little sunny and it's got snow all on the ground, suddenly it's like everything's just reflective and it is bright everywhere. And so my window to my left here is looking out into a neighborhood where we've got so many different giant patches of snow. Like the only thing not covered in snow is the street, but everything else is just pure snow. And so it looks pretty reflective right now. And so I didn't realize I didn't realize how bright it was on my side here. It's like washing me out. Not that it really matters. We're looking at the art, not my face. So that spot, her elbow, is really thick. I don't know what I was doing with all of these lines with her arm. They all feel like they got really thick compared to everything else with her arm. So I think we need to go through and fix these first before we work on this hair here, because this is bothering me. It's way too thick. Get thicker here as we go up. And possibly even curve this line. We can have it curve into the shadow. But yeah, otherwise it was looking way too thick. And this like armor bits, I did not add any detail to these because I don't want to. I think it'll look too busy. But I do like the fact that there's silver here then to break up the color. So I still included them as almost as like panels on her body rather than like huge pieces of armor. See, so now since this is thinner, I can add this little bit of shadow here, and it doesn't feel as insane. Because before that line was way too thick, and it was just getting too lost with all the dark color, dark value, where now it's like, okay, that reads. So again, I think this space is working, because we've got little thicker, little thinner, little thicker, little thinner, right? So we just need to keep that energy as we go up the scalp. So the last weekend we went out for dinner, knowing full well this weekend is always busy, right? Like restaurants are so busy. Like I said, just like the whole idea with flowers and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, if you're just celebrating the idea of how much you care for someone and want to, you know, just whatever, who cares? It doesn't need to be that specific day. But so we went to dinner last weekend. And there's a restaurant. So it sucks. Do you guys ever go to a restaurant and like you go there for a thing, right? I go there for a thing to eat. I don't go there because the whole menu's fantastic. I go there because there's one thing on that menu that really, like, I just get a hankering for, right? There's some of those places have that thing, that draw that hooks you in, that you're like, man, I'm coming back whenever I get the urge to eat this. And there was a place, it was like not Italian, I'm sorry, an Irish pub that I've been to for a billion years. And they have a blackened chicken couscous wrap. Really yummy, right? We all know I eat more on the healthy side, right? And so this was one where it was like, it just had just the right amount of everything. It was just so darn good. One of my favorite like wraps, period. Absolutely loved it. And we would go back there pretty regularly every once in every few months we'd go there to pick up the wrap. It's like in a downtown area, so it was always nice to go grab that to eat and then go for like a walk by the river walk and do things like that, right? We've been doing this for years, keep in mind. And that restaurant gets really busy at times, to the point where like they'll like close, like they're in like a little house, it looks like, in a downtown area. And so there's times where they get so busy, they don't even pick up the phone if we're ordering it to go. If you go in, sometimes it's not, you can't even get in there because it's so busy. It's always a crapshoot. And so when we do make the time to be like, you know what, we're going there, we're making it a thing. You like get it really stuck in your head that like, I really want this. But anyway, where I'm getting at is we went there not too long ago now. And again, when there's things on a menu that you just eat, right? Like you don't question what you're getting. Sometimes you look at the menu to be like, feel like a normal human being. Like, you'll go to a restaurant and you don't even look at the menu, you feel weird. So there's something innately in our human nature that goes like, I'm going to look at this menu knowing full well, you know what you're getting. You're just pretending, right? You're Mark Zuckerberg pretending to be human, right? We all know you're a robot, that you're not a real human being. There's nothing going on back there. Like, and so without hesitation, the waitress came and girlfriend and I both were like, oh, we'll both get the chicken couscous wrap. And this girl, like, I don't know, early 20-something kid, gives us both this, like, she does one of those numbers, right? The breathe in through the teeth. I hate that. Because you know it's something bad. Nobody breathes in through their teeth for something good. Like, oh my God, you won $1 million. No, that doesn't happen. It's only bad. And so she's like, oh, yeah, that's not on the menu anymore. What? I've been coming here before you were born, young lady. I felt like that old guy energy, right? Where I was like, what? But it's always been here. And she's like, yeah, she's like, I've gotten a lot of people actually have complained this past month now. She's like, the owner decided they didn't want couscous, period, anymore. And I was like, what? And so like they had other things on the menu that had couscous. And so apparently they just revamped a lot of the menu. And that is heartbreaking. But so we both looked at each other and we're like, do we leave? Do we just leave? Like, you came for the single thing, right? Like, if you go to a football game and they're like, hey, we're not playing football today. I came here for football, right? Like, I came here for the thing. If I go to a movie theater and they're like, hey, we're not actually showing that movie you had planned on, it's a different movie. Well, I came to watch that movie. I didn't come to experience a movie in general. I came for that singular thing. And we didn't, though. I was like, no, we're both really hungry. Let's give it a shot, right? We've eaten here plenty. Let's see if they've got something different. It sucked. They had one other wrap that was like kind of trying to be similar, but it was like way fattier. Like it had like, I don't know. It was not as good. And it was a bummer, right? Because it's like one of those little things that you really like that is, you just can't have. And you can't. It is of no control of your own, right? You're like, well, I guess that's gone from my life now, which seems silly, but like food is a comfort, right? For a lot of us, food can be a comfort, especially I don't eat out a lot and I don't get a lot of weird food, right? I'm pretty boring. And so not being able to have some of those things, I'm like, well, shit, that, okay. Like, it is what it is. But where I'm getting at is there's another restaurant we go to, and I'm a sucker. I don't eat fried stuff, right? I do not eat fried things. However, there's one fried thing that I will allow to consume. And those are sweet potato fries, right? Oh my God, sweet potatoes are the greatest thing, period. I just love sweet potatoes. And so there's a restaurant. There's Wahlburgers in, it was in Minneapolis in the Mall of America right there. But then there's a couple throughout, and it's Wahlberg, like the actor, right? Wahlbergs. And they have sweet potato tots. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. My best friends and I would eat them all the time when we lived in Minnesota. They were the greatest thing. Absolutely fantastic. When I took my girlfriend to Minnesota the first time, I've got this adorable picture of her just like chowing down on these sweet potato tots because they are fantastic. Okay. Love me some tots. Only of the sweet potato nature though. Normal tater tots. What am I? In third grade? School lunch? And I got a big square pizza next to me? No, thank you. Sweet potato tots are bust. Anyway, we went to a restaurant the other day that we've been to many a times as well. There's a couple in the area. It's Cheney, right? I've been there. We've been there together. I've been there with family. It's a nice restaurant overall. And they have good stuff. They've got one dish that's like lemon chicken, and it's got a cauliflower mash. I love when you give me some sort of starchy thing out of vegetable. But for an appetizer, they always had, you guessed it, this isn't Wahlburgers. This was just me going on a tangent. This is a different restaurant that also had sweet potato tots as an appetizer. It's more of like a nicer sit-down restaurant. And man, did we always get those. Doesn't matter who we were with, we would always get those. Those were the best. So we go there for dinner last weekend. And the kid comes up. He's like, hey, have you guys eaten with us before? We're like, oh, yeah, plenty. And he's like, blah, 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 doing his spiel. And girlfriend's like, oh, do you want to just order the tots first? And I was like, oh, yeah. Can we just start off with the sweet potato and order the sweet potato tots? And he's like, he did the thing. He breathed through his teeth. Universal sign for uh-oh, right? Uh-oh. And I was like, no. He goes, when was the last time you guys were here? And I'm like, I don't know, like we don't go to eat that often. When we do, we go to different places. Wherever. I was like, I don't know, like maybe 6 months. And he's like, yeah, we've changed the menu. We don't have sweet potato tots anymore. And I was like, what? Why my sweet potato tots? Not many places have sweet potato stuff. For those that don't know, at least not here in Chicago where we go eat. There's not a lot of like good sweet potato things that I've found. And so when we have one that's good, it excites me. But yeah, so definitely no sweet potato tots there either. And he's like, yeah, they're just gone. We just don't carry them anymore. And I was like, dope. We left. No, we ate dinner. Dinner was great still. It was a really fun time. But it's hard to say because, it still felt like something was lacking because, no sweet potato tots. But it's just weird in a world that we live in where things are like always changing. Things are out of your control in so many ways, like especially with the way the government's handling things right now. There's so many things that you feel like you don't have control over. And so little stupid things like that, I'm not getting like heartbroken. It's really not that big of a deal. I'm not saying it is. It's food. But it's one of those things where like it hits just like a tiny bit harder now when you're like, I guess I don't get those anymore either. And that was, again, out of my control. Like, because I've talked about it before on stream too, that like my gym closed. My gym's always closed because that's just my luck. And like the gym is my therapy. I go to the gym for my own mental health. Yes, it's physical, but it's my mental health is all it's really about. And when the gym closes, it felt like it's like, well, cool, that was something out of my control for a thing that I used as my therapy, but also was like a second home if you think of how often I'm there. If I'm there 6 days a week, you know what I mean, 2 hours a day, like that's a good amount of time. And so it's just weird when in life we have these things that we have no control over. There's so many things that we don't have control over, whether it's health or other things with life and all these things, right? That when it's like little random things like that, they just are like, come on, this too? Like just that extra oomph that just hits you. Moral of the story, if you find somewhere with sweet potato tots, cherish it. Cherish it because you don't know when they'll be gone. So I've been hee-hawing a little bit as I've been talking, just kind of slapping values in, right? A little bit thicker lines here, a little bit thicker there. Haven't really talked much through, but the same idea has been applying, right? I'm just kind of trying to find space that would help the image roll a little better, right? Move your eye, feel like it has more, where things would be more in shadow, where things would be folding, moving. But I'm getting to a point where I'm like, something still is a little off. Can't quite put my finger on it. I said before, I zoom out a lot and I look at it on stream here because the stream camera is zoomed out, so I don't have to zoom out quite as far on my own personal device. I wonder if it's like something like this. So like there's like a weird thickness here in the center that I want to break up. Something about, get rid of this one entirely. Hold on. I'm going to do like a full revamp here real quick and see if this helps. And then we do more of like a, okay, that opened it up. So it was, this line we had was way too thick and it like blocked the hair off. It felt a little too heavy and it felt like we were having two pieces of the hair then rather than a smooth continuation of the hair, right? We want it to feel very natural. Hair of all things needs to feel like very, very organic. And so you have to be, I talked about before with hair, it's a weird thing where it's hard to screw up, but also super easy to screw up. It's like this weird middle ground of where there's really, it almost feels like no logic, that it's like, yeah, I can do whatever I want. These lines look fine. But then also you'll do that and you'll be like, holy poop balls, that is actually horribly wrong. I take it back. I can't do the thing. I think that's looking good. I think the same problem actually can be applied here, or looked at here, where that line is just getting too, I don't like these like too many connecting lines for the hair. And I think that's what was happening in two spots where it just felt too closed off then. So I'm trying to just kind of help make it feel more organic. I kind of want to, like this massive chunk here, I want to break up in some way. I don't know how though. That feels too straight. It just feels like a big chunk here, right? I feel like it's a good opportunity to have some sort of break in this shape. Oopsies. So my stomach's gargling. Gargling? Rumbling? There's a rumbly. Am I tumbling? Time for something sweet? I think so. What time is it? It is 12:30. Perfect. My stomach knows. Like it knows on the hour. It's like, hey man, been an hour. You know what time it is. Time for me to hurry up because I, as usual, did not get enough done today. But I have cleaned up a lot of these lines and I do like the way it looks. But as usual on stream, I feel like I go like at a snail's pace because I'm talking so much. Chocolate time indeed. Yep. You already know what time it is. Time for chocolate. It's hard around a face because I want more darks in the face, but it's a very fine line. Haha. Of where you can add shadow, like thick lines, without becoming really gross. Really thick lines, especially on a softer featured feminine face like this, you've really got to watch out for, because suddenly they can change the look and the shape of a lot of things, like really quickly. And especially with the face here, the goal is to paint highlights into it anyway, right? So we're going to be painting more detail regardless, like for the cheekbone and stuff like that. So I don't need to overly invent the wheel, right? Reinvent the wheel overly. I don't know what that phrase should have been the way I said it. Don't quote me on wherever the hell I just spoke. So but yeah, I'm not trying to like do too much because I know when we add a little bit of value in the face, it goes a long way with highlights and shadows. So I don't want to do too much. I think I'm going to play with the top of her hair here and then probably call it for now with line work. Because I said I want at least an hour to play with the colors. I want this movement to feel more connected like this. Before they were too disparate, like this cut off and this went in. So that didn't really make sense. I want to make it feel a little more flowy and natural. Like they're all kind of the same curve, you know, living in the same space of curvature. Or something, kind of. So I know everyone was dying to know, yes, I have ranked up in Marvel Rivals as we're drawing Psylocke here. Oh, I got to Diamond 1 the other night, which is great. Diamond 1 is very close to Grandmaster, which was my goal this season because my one friend made a joke. I was giving him crap because he was always making excuses. And I was like, people can grind to I know, you were really wondering, right? Everyone. And every time anybody watches stream, they're like, man, I wonder how Britain's ranked grind is going in Marvel Rivals, right? Everybody thinks it, you know, not everybody says it, but you know, it's one of those unspoken things. So I'm just getting it out there for everybody to know. And but no, so I had a friend who was very stubborn about like acting like he was better than he was. And it's like you can be the skill. Ranking systems exist for a reason because if you're in a rank, it's probably because you exist with a skill level that should be in that rank. And that's perfectly fine. That's the literal point of ranking. So you're playing against people in your own skill. And I had made that comment and I was like, obviously it's not luck because people can solo play a game and get to the highest ranks without being in a team with other people, without, you know what I mean? They're just playing the game. So if they can do it, are they something special? Or is it just that's just how the ranking system is set up, that you play the way you play? And so I said that, and he's like, well, fine, why don't you get to Grandmaster then? I was like, fine, okay, kiss my butt, I'll get there, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna be a Grandmaster. And I'm almost there. So Diamond 1 is 1 away from Grandmaster. And I should have gone to bed. I hit Grandmaster last night. And I was like, man, I should probably go to bed. I hit Diamond 1, I mean. Hit Diamond 1, I should go to bed. End on a good win. Be cool. But I was genuinely I love the game, right? Like I have a lot of fun playing it in many ways. And so I was like, I'm feeling it though. Like those wins were good. I felt it. I want to play a little more. What if I get like 1 or 2 more wins and then I'm almost at Grandmaster if I can get a couple more, you know, keep these wins going. Can you guess where this went? It didn't go into wins. It went into 2 back-to-back losses where I am literally... Here, let's take a peek. Go back. Get out of the Psylocke thing. I am in negative 26. Oh, we can't see because my head. No. Negative 26 points. I am like, if I lose my next game, I'm literally back not only down to Diamond 2, but that means I'll be at like 50 points out of 100 for Diamond 2. So like I'm super far away from even Diamond 1 again. So that sucks. I should have gone to bed. 1, I would have been better rested. And 2, I wouldn't be at negative 26 right now. But that's okay because I have been enjoying. It is better to stop when you're ahead, but when you're ahead, you're having fun and you're feeling yourself. And it was like it would have been like I wanted to be off around like 2 a.m. a little past. And I was like, well, I can squeeze in one more. And when I squeezed in one more and it was the loss, I was like, okay, but like maybe one more actually. So you can see I won, got to diamond 1, and then lost and lost. I was like, son of a gun. And they were quick. Like this one was 6 minutes. 6-minute loss. That means we got our butt kicked. Anyway, I digress. You know, everybody asking about my rank. I needed to take this moment to talk about it, of course, of course. So I think what we'll do maybe, instead of doing some sort of like visual effect here and show you. Yes, I had to talk about it and show it. You can't just have one or the other, you know? Like, I feel like I'm being judged right now, but it's okay. Thanks. Orco Power is very judgy. They don't like my my Marvel Rivals rants. Yeah, she's definitely I like the way she's feeling now. I think again, I sit here and hee-haw over the line work, but the line work is like very important because it really sells the whole shape. So while it seems silly for me to go back and forth with this line, these lines and stuff, it makes or breaks the image. And so it's a balancing act for sure. But I think we're getting there. I think one, like this butt is all, the butt cheeks are right now all one same line. So let me play with this thickness just a smidge. And maybe thin it a little bit here. Too thin. Too thin. Abort. Okay. I don't like that. That lost the roundness now. It looks more oval. Never mind. I don't know. Something just feels like I need to change some of the line width here. Maybe a little thicker up here by the... That'll help. Something just feels... Okay, that helps. That thicker line on that part actually really helped. Once, we've talked about it before, once you start balancing really well, things that looked good sometimes don't look good anymore just because everything else around it became more balanced. So it might have looked okay before, but then once you start tweaking things, it feels out of place. Thank you. I'm glad you like her butt. I've come a long way. Again, I still like, let me go back. Do I have the original drawing on this one? Like, I really do. I am happy because it does feel like night and day the way I'm getting better at adjusting these forms and really, you know, understanding the shape and understanding how to sell it more. Like, yeah, night and day between those two. Even though they're the same pose, essentially, just a little tweaked. But okay, let me do a final... Is this the same image? Okay, so I don't need that layer anymore. I keep like backups sometimes, and so I don't know what's what anymore when I keep changing. So zooming out, I'm just looking for anywhere that needs a little darker. I think something with the hair feels like I want it to be a little darker, but I don't know where. Like over here, like this space here feels like it needs to have a little darker of a mass. Obviously not that, but just saying like it needs something to make it feel like it's behind more. Because right now it's starting to feel like very same plane as the shoulder. So I wonder if we just... Then we're thickening that lineup that we had before. So I don't like that too much. It's hard because what we did before was we unthickened, we thinned out, unthickened. We thinned out these lines. But I wonder if we thicken them now for the sake of the hair, not the sake, thicken them more towards the hair rather than the arm. But that doesn't work either. So I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, I think we just need a couple more like heavier darks up here because there's a lot of like really heavy darks like in her thigh here and stuff. And I feel like there's not enough up by the hair. So I'm just trying to figure out like one or two spots where I can really darken the flowy part of her hair here. Something like that, maybe. I know I talked about breaking up some of these shapes, but I wonder if... No, I don't like that either. I liked breaking the shape up, but now it becomes... When in doubt, we've talked about it before, just try and like full break a thing. So let's see if instead this hair goes like that, and then can we form a thicker shadow in that negative area? Oh gosh, huge erasure. Eraser. So again, I'm trying to see if I can thin out this line to make that thicker feeling, right? Thinning to make the other piece thicker. I am nervous. I know I did my rant on Marvel Rivals, right? But now it is like, no, there's so much weight on whenever I do play one more game. Because now if I lose, it's just that much further from Grandmaster then. Like, that one win can really, one win or loss next can really change my future. So again, just trying to keep a lookout at the other spaces in her hair for where you can work it, right? So like if, again, the other parts were too thick, don't necessarily thin everything or thicken everything. Try and see the surrounding parts that can maybe help. So like if these parts I make a little thinner, does the other part feel thicker then? I don't know. I wonder, I don't, this song keeps, whatever this beat is, I keep thinking it sounds like it's Cruella de Vil. Da da na na na. Oh, it's from Animal Crossing. It's based off of this song. Okay. As someone who doesn't play Animal Crossing, that makes sense that I'd have no clue what it's from. It's not Cruella de Vil then, for those of you wondering. But if you want it to be, it can be whatever you want. All right. I'm thirsty. My water is right here. I'm going to swap my water with my coffee real quick because I need to. We'll zoom out so it doesn't look like there's nothing on the screen when I step away for my quick second. Oh, the chair's not stuck. And we're back. Very themed. Went with red for Valentine's Day. I have my reddish and some orange, whatever, close enough. Cup. I've got my red hoodie I wear pretty much all the time. My morning hoodie. Whatever. My girlfriend has a really cute shirt she got this year. And it's like a little baggy. Looks real cute, but it just has like love and all this stuff all around it. It's like little candy hearts. I don't have something like that to wear. I am sorry. Something about the hand doesn't have any detail, and I was okay with that. But now again, when we've added more stuff, it just feels like it needs something. But there's really nothing like any line, like anything I add just feels too much then. Like adding like not the move. Oh well. I think it's fine. Okay, I think the hair flows nicely enough now. I think we're hitting to that point where we're just gonna start over noodling the hair, and I don't want to get to that, so let's do like one extra thick curve on one of these. Nope, not that one though. It just feels like there needs to be a little bit darker towards the end here. And I think we'll be good. Yeah, I like that. I like it a lot. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna say the line work's done. Boom. I always forget which way I have to angle. Look, line work. Beautiful. Bootyful. Okay, let's see where our colors were. So just got a little bit of touching up to do here. I wish I could, this sounds weird. I wish I could spin Psylocke around and see what the bottom of her feet look like. I wonder if they're actually this silver color at the bottom. It looks like they almost could be. But obviously she's not gonna. Are there any emotes where she jumps? Oh wait. No, it's just darker. I don't think they really... Yeah, it's just dark. Huh. That looked weird. Am I right? I can't. Yeah, that's just the purple still. It's not silver. I wonder if the silver would look better, though. Just for shits and giggles, let me just see. I don't know. That's a tough one. If I like the silver makes more sense, but I think the purple looks better. Yeah, I feel like the purple balances better. Like I like having more purple. The silver needs to be more of accents. There's no like giant chunks of silver anywhere. And so having that massive bit of silver feels too much then, because nowhere else on the piece is there that much silver in a singular location. So I don't want it to overstay its welcome kind of thing, you know? Boy, my nose has been so sniffly. It's almost like it's what I think it's 2 degrees outside, something like that. Maybe less. I forgot the weather doesn't show right there on the phone the way I look at it. It's cold. It's pretty cold though. And then so the cold mixed with then like having the heat on causes a lot of like gross sniffles. So the problem with how etchy I do stuff is you get a lot of these negative spaces here, like this, that end up looking gross. So I need to go in and like hand paint in the crevices of space. Just so like the reds here, that looks hideous, right? That's ugly. So I need to go in. I don't need it to cover every bit. It's okay. But I want to go in really quick and just kind of catch some of these loose ends like that. A couple are fine. We'll put a color in the background or something so it feels like it'll catch it. But the low-hanging fruit, the easy ones like this, I need to quickly color in. Otherwise, it looks really unprofessional. Like it looks half-assed, right? It doesn't look done. It looks like you just messed up. And so just gonna go through real quick and paint where the color fill didn't really fill. And like honestly, in some of these spots, it could be the skin tone, it could be the purple. It's not like a truly make or break it scenario, right? The eye is just making sure there's a surrounding color somewhat there. So I wouldn't hit your head over it. You know what I mean? Like it's good enough, I'm sure. Oops, I forgot. Those are 2 different purples though. I will not do that. That's lots heresy, my friend. But like this peach area here, not peach because of her butt, but the actual skin tone, the peach, like this looked really messy down here, right? So making sure there's something filling in these negative spots of lines. Not very exciting to watch. Snow is heading our way, you say? Great. I don't want to hear that. I didn't know there was more. I thought we were done with the snow. I'll look at the weather later today. Hopefully not as much as this last time because that was not fun. We're running low on salt. Said we need to get more. We've got enough for one more snowfall, like one more big snowfall. So we should be good, and then we'll get more next time. But it's one of the, again, for those that live in the Midwest, it's one of those things where like you look at snow and you're like, cool, it's snowing, but like your brain goes, maybe this is the last snow though, right? Like you want to trick yourself every time, like, yeah, but like maybe this is the last snowfall we get this year, and that's okay then, you know? And like, oh, we need more salt, but we do have enough salt for one more snowfall. So like maybe we just hope we don't get any more. You always get more. There is always more. When you think it's done, it's the chamois. But wait, there's more, right? Always and forever. I feel like it'll snow into March at this point. So, who knows? The hair in particular has a lot of these. Nature's art, yes, but that is true. Snow is nature's art, but so is everything. Nature is art. So I'd rather have warm nature art. Right? The sun is nature's art. The beautiful greens are nature's art. I'll take that, right? I just don't like shoveling and dealing with the cold. And the second I take out my phone on my walks, my fingers get numb and stuff like that. Like, I don't want that. I'm over it. But yes, no, it does look pretty. So the other day, it was snowing like really a lot here, like a lot. And it was cold and it was snowing. And I still went on my walk as I do. And I put on this kind of music, this lo-fi, this chill kind of like relaxing ambient-y kind of stuff. Not this exactly, but like, you know what I mean? Like this kind of stuff. And it was actually really peaceful and really pretty. It was later, so the sun had already set. You just had the street lights. There wasn't too many cars because I was walking through the subdivisions around here, so it didn't look like, you know, it wasn't like busy, hustle and bustly or anything. And there was just the warmth of everyone's lights from inside. And the way the snow was falling, it was actually like a nice snowfall where it wasn't like aggressive and super intense. It was like flurrying and quite a bit of snow, but it wasn't like massive snowflakes and stuff like that, or wet, right? It was the nice floating kind. And so there was something really peaceful about that. And it is important that, yeah, you mentioned nature's art. It's important to find those moments that, like, yes, snow is annoying or life is whatever at the time, but like walking and just taking that moment and appreciating how nice that felt, right? And just, it was relaxing and it felt nice and it felt almost movie-esque, you know, that energy of just like chilling, very, very pretty snowfall, all that stuff. So it was nice. But also I just don't want to shovel anymore. Okay, so I think we're done with the flat colors and the line work and stuff now. So I don't know exactly how I want to solve this, like I said, I want it to be like some sort of like pinkish energy. It really was peaceful. Yeah, she's got, I wish I had like an image more so if I could like freeze frame when she does her little like, it's like a cross, like a weird little thing on her hand that like shoots stuff too. Because it's the butterfly. But it's a blade and then it's, so I wonder if we do it the blade actually instead. And that way we could do something like the sword has a little bit of that energy, but then she does always have her dagger or whatever it would be called. But I wonder if instead of giving it line work at all to make it feel different, it's just strictly light, right? We don't give it lines. Or if we do give it lines, they're not black. They'll be like maybe graphic, like this a graphic pink, right? So how do I even, like a daggery thing like that. I don't know. I'm gonna figure that out later. I don't want to do that right now. That sounds silly, but I don't want to mess with that right now. So I'm going to instead fix, I want this just to be flat right now. These colors, I want it to be flat. So I added these little highlights, but I'm going to get rid of them just for the sake of restarting the process over again and adding its own layer of color for shadows and the like. So we're going to just paint these in real quick one more time. And then we can start highlighting and shadows and all that good stuff. That looks good. Ooh, not what I wanted. I don't remember if this purple, I think that purple was slightly different than the eyeshadow I gave her. There is a lot of, actually, let's make this purple behind the eyeliner here, just to give a little more va-va-voom of this darker color. I was going to do peach, but we'll stick with the peach color up here with the eyebrows then. To fit behind it. Give a little bit more of this gray for the eye. One thing is never use white, right? Like I don't use white very often. Because white's really, like the inside of your eye is not white, right? Like it is very light compared to everything else. But like we've talked about, everything's a comparison from the other point. So like using white becomes too contrasty. Because like, yes, these are two different, like there's white and you can see here on the color picker, this is white, whereas gray, right? Having that little bit of that kind of color makes everything feel more alive. When you have stuff that's just like, hey, look, your brain goes, it's white, right? And then you put white on, you're like, ooh, it just feels dead. Oh crap, why is that? I have no idea why this fill is covering that space. There's no, like that's a solid line if I've ever seen one. Weird. All right, I'll just paint that butt cheek highlight in so we have flat colors again. And then we'll do a separate layer. So basically what I was getting is I like to keep it, I've been trying to be a little messier, but I still need to be a little organized. So now we have here just flat, right? Flat colors, no shadows, no nothing. It's just all the flat colors. Looks kind of ugly though when you take off the lines. Kind of ugly. Quite ugly. It looks weird. But it's all there. And so what I like to do first is I do gradients. So I feel like gradients help sell stuff right away. And I don't like this application because it doesn't have a good way to do gradients naturally. But what I do is I'll just paint one in. So instead of, normally I make it where it's light on the top. But since we're putting her butt front and center, I wonder if we play with the gradient going the other way instead. So we actually have more white down here and black going that way. And then as usual, we just blur the heck out of it. So it feels like that. That looks good, right? That's a good gradient, I think. And let's see how that looks if we, do we overlay it? And drop it down a little. So the point of doing overlays and gradients and stuff like that isn't, we're not like painting an image. What we're doing is just kind of giving natural variety of value throughout. So like no body that we look at, you know, everything exists in space where light's hitting it from so many different angles and all these things that you need to have at least some sort of gradation to the values to make it feel a little more real. So like in 3D, what we do is usually we'll do a gradient from dark to light with most of our characters, right? Very simple, but it gives the idea of slight movement, and you can kind of see where things are going. So like this is with nothing. And so sometimes I just do it with luminosity, right? I don't want to do too much. It's just enough that we are giving variation. So it no longer feels flat, right? The second you add some sort of gradient, it feels more alive, right? And the way we were going to balance that is I wanted the dark kind of coming that way, but then we're going to still do a nice rim light of like a lighter pink glow coming in. So it's okay to have a slight darker up top by the face because we'll probably balance that out a little bit. But yeah, so nothing crazy. When I say gradient, I don't mean like going too much. But yeah, as I turn it on and off, you can see it's just a smidge to help the eye move along the shape. So right now, I like to just give a little bit, like not even super visible, but just a little bit of reds to the skin. Nothing crazy, but just a little bit that they feel less cold, right? Like hands and stuff, especially like sometimes if you just color them those, you know, whatever peachy color they are, it just ends up feeling very lifeless. Whereas if you add just a little hint of red sometimes, it helps feel like, oh, there's life in there, right? There's blood flowing. There's something to that person, not just like here I can turn it on and off again and show. So like there's not much going on, right? Very flat. And I know it's hard to see on stream, but like this little bit of extra reds, doop, immediately gives her just like a little bit more life, right? Just a tiny bit. And then you can go from there. And so like right here though, a lot of that red got on. Normally with Photoshop, I have better ways to account for this. I would like layer stuff off or do masks, but I don't like doing that in Procreate. So unfortunately, like a lot of that red got onto the purple, which is not exactly what we wanted. So you can just erase that. Normally you can kind of block those colors out so that it wouldn't even color on there, but sometimes that takes more time than just quickly adjusting like this and erasing it yourself. Just because I don't like Procreate, like we've talked about before, when it comes to how they handle selection tools and layer masks and the like. Where normally, so what I'm saying is like normally in other software, I could essentially just grab the pink or the peach color and say, hey, just don't color on anything else, right? Just do it on that. But on this software, it's a little harder to naturally just have that happen. You've got to do a couple extra steps. And so sometimes I'll just erase it myself because I say it's not worth it. And honestly, like in the face though, I'm not even going to get rid of it in the face because like if it's in the eyes or in that, you know, that's fine. It's on the body that it looks weird than when you have like, you know, the softer reds on clothing. But I think that works. We'll put a little bit of color here. Just a wee bit. To make it, again, like I said, feel more alive. Doesn't have to be crazy, but it does give it more life. One spot that usually has a lot is the ear, because our ears are pretty much like super duper duper thin. So the subsurface scattering, it's referred to as, so like the blood flow and different things that exist in that space are way more visible usually. Usually anywhere where there's softer, tighter, like a more contact with bone, right? It's thinner. The skin is usually thinner there. And obviously the ear is not contacting bone, but the thinner the skin, usually the more subsurface scattering, or like reds and pinks and blues even become visible. Why? Oh, that eraser was way too large. I did not notice. Okay. I like how this animation just keeps playing up there. I should probably turn that off. I didn't realize it was constantly moving. My bad. So now let's look at the purples. So I want to take the purple. We want it to be a highlight. So we'll go a little warmer and then a little lighter. And so let's see how this looks. I just want to see the color. That color works. So I could go with what we were just doing, right? And keep up this like airbrushy approach where it's much softer lighting. And I kind of do like that, actually. I haven't done that in a while. I wonder if we lean into that, this piece, and just see how we like it. Where we don't do super duper hard edges at all. And just kind of see how this works. And then I can always... we'll see. I'll play with this for like 5 minutes. And then if I'm not liking it, I'll go back to my usual way of painting. But as we always talk about, it's always nice to mix it up anyway and try something new. Even if you don't stick with it, it's nice to just try it. But yeah, I feel like all my pieces always end up becoming so harsh because of my very thick, cartoony way of highlighting and shading stuff. So let's try it. Let's see if we can find a middle ground now where I keep my comic booky thick lines. But then what if we kind of go in and just give a little more softer value? Which again is weird for me because I like being straight and like straightforward. Like this is the line. This is where highlight is. And so, but like we've been trying with a lot of the pieces lately, I've been trying to do stuff that is not necessarily in my comfort zone, right? Like it's important to try things that are not necessarily in your comfort zone because that's how you get better at doing them. Case in point, why I'm drawing female figures right now and like more sexualized with their booty and whatever, and like in this pose, just because I need to get better at everything. And while I'm good at drawing muscular men and women and stuff like that, I'm trying to, you know, get better with all of my art. And so if that means I need to try and do soft painting here, sure, let's try it. I'm down. am just using a soft brush. I wonder if I should try something different or I just keep up. Because I could always try like the toothy. But I don't, yeah, let's just go soft brush. I don't care. Keep it simple. So again, this would become messy since I'm not really locking my colors. Right now, technically, I'm making contact a little bit with the peach color and the skin, right? So normally I'd be way more precise. But again, I'm trying with most of these things on stream to do things that are not quite my norm and be okay with it and get better at doing things differently. So as usual, is this weird? Yerp. Do I like it? I don't know. It's weird. It throws me off. But that's okay. You only grow when you are uncomfortable. This would be a lot easier though if I was able to block these colors so I didn't accidentally paint on the peach color and all that stuff, but here too, I just need, like, what's important too when you're doing stuff like this, like, you're not just like going on edges, you're trying to think of how the form is shaped, right? So like right here, her body, if you think of the body twisting in the way she would be, her lats, your lats kind of go, imagine from like your hip bone to your armpit, essentially, right? So imagine there's like a string connecting there. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but simply, that's kind of the energy, right? And so even though we're highlighting edges, think of like right here, her lat would actually be kind of turning in space. So making sure that that's noted too is important. This oversized boob area is not precise, I feel like, but we'll see. So I've got a smudge brush. Right now I'm using a toothy gouache brush. So what it does is it kind of gives, as you've seen, like this little bit of texture. So I'm putting in these soft brush strokes. And then now I'm taking this toothy smudge and I'm kind of just blending it in a different way than normal. So I'm just kind of smudging it with this. So if you look, it gives this a little bit of texture to it. So it's not like anything crazy, but at least feels a little less harsh, like the way I normally do stuff, that it gives a little bit more variety. So again, just trying different things. And as usual, since we're just focusing right now on the purple of her outfit, the contrast then, yes, of like the butt cheeks and stuff like this looks kind of weird because there's no balance to it. It just feels very one-sided at the moment. But again, that's just the process, which when I talked about before, doing 3D work on stream is almost even worse then because the process, there's so many ugly steps, so many, like, it just looks, 3D work sometimes looks hideous for the first like 2 or 3 days. And then eventually you're like, oh, cool, this looks better now. Like, but it sometimes can be a good chunk of time. And so I'm sticking with 2D work for streaming right now, just because I don't know how intriguing watching 3D would be, at least right now. Some people are like lightning fast at 3D, like quick sculpts and speed sculpts and stuff. But that's I don't really do that, so that's a moot point for me. So she's getting a little bit of shape to her now. Just even putting in these little bits of highlights, I feel like are going a long way of kind of selling the curvature. Again, avoiding using my signature giant hard shadows highlights and shadows like I always do. Brush is a little big. I'm like nervous now. I've got it in the back of my head. I'm like, ugh. As soon as stream's over, I'll probably check the Weather Channel. But do I wanna? I'll live blissfully ignorant for the time being, so that's fine. So this is looking a little too much. So let's actually get the soft brush as an eraser and kind of just get rid of some of this. This is really, oh God, way too large. So I just basically what it is, I drop the opacity. So it's not like a hard brush at all of erasing, but just kind of cleaning up because it was getting a little too dark. Because I want to allude to this, like we said, there's at least a little bit of shape, but I'm not like selling this giant curve as a thing. It's just kind of a hint of movement. What is the a whisper of desire? The from Schitt's Creek. Oh my gosh, that line where he thinks the dad thinks the one mom is hitting on him. He's like, I don't know, I think I felt something from her, like a whisper of desire. And of course, the episode pans out where that was not the case at all, and she thinks he's way too old for him, even though they're like the same age and blah 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 blah. But yeah, a whisper of desire. I loved that line. It was so funny, especially coming out of Levy. There, he, such a goofy old guy. So again, since this is a new technique for me in the sense of like I haven't really painted this way, it's kind of weird. So bear with me as it is a learning process for me as well as I do stuff like this. Like on stream, I usually haven't been painting just because I'm trying different things lately. And so usually not the most exciting to see when someone's like fumbling. But congratulations. Hey, Kalinquit. How's it going? We were just talking about how I'm trying to, I always go out of my comfort zone when I'm painting stuff. Lately, I've been trying to go out of my comfort zone with a lot of ways of making my art. And so normally I do very like graphic, cartoony, comic book highlights and shadows, very hard edges. And so I am trying to just be softer, right? So try and find that middle ground of hard comic book line work that I love to do, and then mixing it up with this like softer, gouachy, airbrushy approach. But it is always weird. It's like weirdly nerve-wracking doing, like, I like when I'm streaming and I'm doing the stuff I know how to do, right? Like, you feel confident, you feel comfortable. I can talk about it because I know the decisions I'm making. Like when I'm doing the anatomy, right? Like I know anatomy really well, so I can talk about that. But I can't, like, as I'm painting in new ways, I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm saying. This is new to me too. So I don't have as much of insightful input, unfortunately, when it comes to this kind of stuff. But everybody can watch me struggle then as I'm doing it. Thank you, thank you. I'm trying. I'm trying to mix what I'm doing and get better each time. So I think it's been working. Each time I've been more happy with the results. I knew, as not a traditional 2D artist by trade, you know, as a 3D artist professionally, I've always loved doing 2D stuff, and I knew if I just devoted more time here, I can, you know, nourish it like anything, getting the reps in and doing better. Keeping you in plat 3 all week. I can see that. You got to get pro tips then. If you're in plat 3 and a Psylocke's doing work, learn Namor. Namor does a lot of work against her and most dive characters. You throw the, well, I can't remember what they're actually called. His little turrets, the little octopus, right? You throw them down. The second you see her trying to dive on you guys, you throw them down and immediately hit her with like the alternate fire, pop her, and those squids will do the work for you half the time. Plat 3 is a rough spot to be though. I will say. Because plat's a weird spot. So in a lot of ranks, so what I do is I use general reference. So I've got books. Here, let me grab them. So I use what's called Masters of Anatomy. So they are they've been around for years now, right? So like, I have like every book they've ever made. Raul Moreno, I believe, is the artist who does these. But like Masters of Anatomy books are my favorite. They've been around for like 10-ish years, 12 years. They've been doing Kickstarters and stuff like that. Every time I back them. And so what's cool is they've got like, I'm going to open it real quick here. They've got like just some rough, a little more final, some real sketchy, just random poses, right? And I use these as not necessarily the pose itself, but as a jumping off point. So yeah, they are the best books. So again, it's called Masters of Anatomy. I think they've got like 10 some books. Like there's one that's all males, there's one that's all female, there's one that's mixed, there's one that's weapons, the original one they did was like turnarounds of different artists making different stylized human forms. Fantastic. So I think I have, let me see. I think I have the image that I used as a reference for this one. Let me see so I can show you kind of what I'm talking about. So I'll pull a lot of things where I'll look at it and be like, cool, dope. Let me run with it. I know I've got it somewhere. Because it's in one of these books, but if I'm going to try and scrub through one of these books, I couldn't tell you. I usually take a picture of it if I'm gonna use it more. But yeah, it's usually a mix then. So what I'll do is I'll look at those. Sometimes I'll combine a couple ideas. Like I'll see someone's like upper half that looks like, oh, I really like that twist of the shoulders or doing something like that. But I really want them jumping or doing this or doing, you know, like different poses. So usually it's a mix. Sometimes I'll use those as a jumping off point. Sometimes I use them a little bit more like concrete, but not often. I don't really like doing that. I cannot find it. I think here. Did I send it on Discord to myself at one point? Let me see. Ah, perfect. Okay. Let me save this image. Boom. But yeah, so normally that's kind of what I do. So I'll show you in a sec once I can finally get this up. Holy cow. Sorry, this was a long-winded way of getting there. So let's go to chatting. So like this. So like this was the pose, right? This was the initial pose that I had from her. So we can see that was the pose that I used as like a jumping off point and then ran with it. So the idea is there, right? I liked the idea of this woman jumping, right? And one leg forward. But if you look, like the feet are different angles. I twisted her hips different. I remade how the butt looks. Her arms are different. Her head's turned around towards us. I really accentuated her twisting her body towards us then and changed it. You know, so there's a lot of like changes, but this was the jumping off point. And I think that comes with time, obviously, like learning, like you said, that sounds tough because it's hard to blend poses. But it is one of those things where once you wrap your head around them, it gets easier and easier, like everything in life. But yeah, no, it's one thing. I've been drawing a billion years now, it feels like. So everything does take time. But getting the reps in, getting the understanding, doing figure drawing classes always helps. But like, because if we look, yeah, I love doing like just, I don't know, like fun poses or anatomy and stuff like that. So like most everything, if you look through as I'm scrubbing through, I've got like some generic, some not. A lot of them, like almost all of these came from just like in my head necessarily, but then every once in a while, like I said, I'll pull from that book because why not? You know, like if you've got the way to work with those ideas, once you've trained your brain enough, you don't need the exact thing. You just need a spark, right? Like just a little spark to kind of get your brain going the way you want it. But yeah, I guess as I talked about, thank you. All right. I've been trying to get, it's hard to promote yourself, right? So I just started streaming this year now. And so I've been trying to figure out ways to get people, you know, to hang out and see the cool stuff and be a part of the chat. Because I like to help too, right? Like I would love to have like a full Discord where we can like post pictures and I can help critique and make things better and do all that kind of stuff too. But it takes time. I'm working on YouTube content now too, so I can kind of get a whole breadth of stuff, you know. But yeah, you can see here, I kind of jump styles all the time. Like, what do we got? Like, we got a Colossus here that's kind of sketchy. And then we've got, like, I had this Akuma that I was kind of cleaning up and making a lot more, like, you know, hard shapes. Like I said, this is more of what I usually do, like the hard shapes like that. This was one my girlfriend made. It was a joke about He-Man. She tries. It was cute. But yeah, stylistically, I kind of jump all around. I like this one. That was a fun little one I did with Steamboat Willie. Uh-oh. My iPad's getting really old though, so it struggles. Here's one that I really like that I never finished. I'm a big Disney fan, so I do a lot of Disney stuff. Comic books, Disney, cartoons, pretty much all I do. But yeah, handful of different things. I did on stream too the last. Actually, I'm old. So I've worked in video games since 2017. I have a master's degree in animation, actually. So I am an animation student. I did traditionally learn animation years and years ago, and that was what I got my master's in. And then I've worked primarily as a 3D artist then. I've done illustration and motion graphics, but then primarily 3D art has been my actual like focus in games. But yeah, and now here the game industry is kind of blowing up and pooping in on itself. So I said, you know what? I want to work on my own stuff and maybe make. I like to teach stuff, right? And I like to go over things like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start. If I always reference The Office, I'm gonna make my own paper company, right? Where I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna start streaming my art. I've been working on learning new software for video editing, and so um moving into doing YouTube content then too, right? So I was gonna do more of video game art breakdowns and stuff like that. Like, and then the other page, I've got 2 pages. I want one that's gonna be more educational, and then another page that's gonna be more like, you know, breakdowns of art, cool things in games and stuff. The way I'm billing it right now is one page is to learn art and the other page is to appreciate art, if that makes sense. Animation and graphic design there. Yeah. Like I said, master's of animation, so I love animating. Like growing up, seeing things in motion is magic, right? Like there's something magical about taking a thing and making it move, right? And giving it life. There are very few things that give me that feeling, right? And so I remember when I was younger and I would animate, even when I was, very beginning, right? You're doing like a bouncing ball or this or that, like something about giving something life. It's so cool. Just making it move, making it spawn from your head onto the paper. But yeah, busy year for sure is what the plan right now is. I've got a lot of moving pieces I want to kind of get going, which I know my girlfriend not give me crap, but is like, you're trying to bite off a lot. And I'm like, yes, I am, but I also really want to do it. So it's worth biting it off, like anything worth doing is going to be hard pretty much, right? Nothing worth doing is easy in that sense. So gotta start somewhere. What is the question? I may or may not have an answer, but I hope I do. Pretty new and keep hearing about art styles. Been jumping around from style to style. How do you start building up to it? Oh, well, I feel like this is a prime example, right? Like you can see what I draw is different all the time, right? If we look at this style, quote unquote style, to like, goodness, I don't know, like this style, very different when you look at it. I think or even like my Street Fighter pieces I did, like this, very different style, even in the Street Fighter pieces, right? That Street Fighter piece to this Street Fighter piece, kind of different, right? I think learning early on, that's the biggest thing, right? We all look at art and we see our favorite artist, right? I've got art on every wall here, right? They're everywhere. I see my favorite artist all the time, and I want to be able to do what they do in the sense of like, I know it's their art when I see it, right? Like, I love Scotty Young. He has a very distinct art style, but like, that's just something that happens. Gotcha. But like, it's one of those things that just happens. And so when I was younger, I always tried to mimic other people's art styles, right? You can't really do that, like, because the more you study, the more you do the way you make your marks, right? So I'm going to pull up. So on stream a week or two ago, I was doing studies of other artists, right? So like this is one of the studies where I pulled up an artist who does females pretty well, right? Like I like the way they did it. So I was drawing what they drew, but there's a weird way of learning where you don't learn by mimicking exactly, right? Like when I was drawing from this person's stuff, I was breaking down what I liked and what I didn't like. And like for this person in particular, what I liked is the way that they used curves. And by what I mean by that is a lot of their pieces I found, oops, I'm on a hidden layer. Let me go here. A lot of their shapes, right? So the breast is this curve. Let's make it red. The breast is this curve, right? But also the lat is that curve. And they paralleled each other. Usually you don't want to do too many parallels, but that helped sell that shape. And even on this piece, I noticed this breast and that lat. Same idea. And this other piece I studied, breast, lat, right? Not always on both sides, but at least on the one side, right? Breast and lat, right? The S and C lines for sure. But it's one of those things where I didn't look at this person's art and say, I want to draw like you. I said, I like something about the way you draw. And I want to fold that into the way I draw. And so hunting after a style is an easy trap to fall in because so many ways you're like, I want to draw it like this. I want to draw it like this. Like this is 3 different face studies I did of different artists here too, right? 3 different artists, they all draw faces different. But it's just a matter of understanding how they do it and seeing what you like, right? Like I do stuff like this myself, right? Like this nose, I always draw stuff like this. So I liked this bend. I like that. And I took that to heart of how they utilized those shapes for the nose or things like of that nature where it's like, you're not learning to copy, you're learning to learn. But so all that to say, when you're trying to find a style, don't. Like, as silly as that is, don't try and find a style. Just be happy with the ways you draw. And it'll just happen. The more you try and make a thing happen, the less likely it will. Because you get lost. You get lost in the weeds of it. Just draw. And I know that seems like the lamest advice, but it's how it works. Like that's just, oops, I lost the purple color I was using. I got that red. It's just the way it works. So draw and draw and draw. And if you need to copy other people and learn, but eventually you'll end up making your own marks. So like for me, this is kind of how I've settled, right? Like, do you see how like these are like sketchier, thicker lines for the line work? Like that is one thing that's become consistent with my lines. But like if we go back, I don't know, this is years ago, right? Like many years ago. Like many. Gosh, 6 years ago? What are these? Like, I was always sketchy, right? Like, and I tried to go really clean with lines. These are old, so bear with me how ugly these are. Like, or something else. Then I tried being like way softer, but still thicker lines, right? I kept trying different things, and that's okay. I'm not trying to do it to find a style. I'm doing it to feel addicted to giving your character the bold outline. Yeah, I like those thick strokes myself for sure. So it's easy for me to do the same. But like, as you can see, all of these are different. And it's okay, because I was just drawing different things, different ways all the time growing up. So 2020, so that's not like that long ago, but like long enough. What do we got here? Ooh, none of those are very good. So again, each one different than the last, and you'll eventually just find it, right? You just find it. And I still feel like I struggle with that all the time. Still, is finding the way I make a mark, right? Like, but you again, it seems silly, but you kind of just have to let it happen, right? Just let it happen. Don't hunt for something that should just come over time. It's like you're trying to like jump the gun when you're trying to find your own style too quickly, right? You have to know the basics. You have to know how to do everything before you can really hone in on the way you make a mark. And even then, it will change all the time because that's just usually how it works. Nobody hammers in a style and keeps it forever because that's the beauty of art. You're just always growing, you're always learning, you're doing new things, and you're just kind of feeling it out as you go. But 1,000%, when I started out, I had that same exact question. And I still question it myself at times. Like, how do I get more of what I want to do in a style? But again, the more you pursue it, the harder it becomes. So just let it be a thing that falls in place as you study and practice, and you'll see how your hand naturally wants to make marks. Like, I like other styles, right? And I've tried them, but that doesn't mean my brain lets me do that. Like, I can study it, right? And I can do it a bunch. But then if I'm naturally going to draw, I'm probably not going to do it that way because that's not for me. But that's why I like doing stream studies. So like, I've done a lot of studies now that are kind of like changing how I do stuff. Like right now, like I said, doing this way of painting. I normally don't do this soft like brushingness, right? Or one of the studies I had planned on doing soon is like not giving line width, right? Like, so we look at my stuff, I've got a lot of line variety. But I'm like, okay, well, fine. If I have to always do that, maybe I need to do a study where I never let myself use it. I use one brush, right? One single brush width, and I can't change it. And in doing these weird studies and practices, sometimes that helps you find your groove too, because sometimes working with less, you can see more of what you want to do. That was a long-winded answer, but I think you get the vibe. So right now, under the breast here, I've got way too much of a highlight, and that doesn't really make sense because obviously there's going to be a lot of shadow there. So I've got this like really soft light brush. I'm just kind of erasing a little bit there. All right, yeah, you can send a link. I can usually tell if it's gonna be shady or not. Okay, so is this something you've done right here? This I'm assuming this is from One Piece, right? It's been a while. I'm old. I watched One Piece when I was but a child. Okay. Oh, I guess we can't really see it on screen. There we go. That's nice. I mean, you definitely have got some oomph there. There's a lot of room to grow for sure, but like this looks really good at first glance. Like I like there's simple things that you can tell have good understanding. Like immediately, like you see the light source, right? Like I can totally tell light source coming from the fire, right? 100%. I like the way it's moving around the body. You've got a little bit here, a little bit of nice rim lights here. Clearly going for a very anime style too, but like little things like that I see are pretty solid, that like you've got good understanding. Little things obviously could go a long way then too. Like one thing I'd say is like maybe like anatomy, like first cuff, taking a peek at this. Here, let's switch over to bigger screen so we can see it more. I can't really draw over it because I don't, so in my office, this is actually the game room. In the office, I've got like my really big Cintiq and all that I can easily draw over. Here, we're just working on my iPad, so it's a little harder to do draw overs, but like a couple like quick things my brain goes to is always find that curve, right? So you can kind of see where my mouse is at least. So like right now, like the thing that jumps out to me is like this shape right here. Like that's a little thick. So like imagine the curve would be going like this and then down. Because if we picture his shoulder, what I like to do when I draw a lot of my drawings is I draw them as if they're invisible, right? Completely draw them like they're invisible, and it helps. So like I normally, if I'm drawing this arm, I would have the shoulder drawn as well, like behind. So his right shoulder, I would draw it, because that helps you understand where the rest of the body is based on what we don't see. So like, I think that's like a quick thing of if I could give one quick tip is just kind of always look at the whole body, even if we don't see it. So like right here, the shoulder would be here, right? So if the shoulder ends here, think of like how that space would move then. So it actually would probably cut here and maybe be a slight round. So almost like where you have the highlight would be more of, or like where the shadow starts is kind of where that line might actually go. And there'd be more twist in the body. Does that make sense? So one thing to study would be that kind of stuff. And I think one way to do that for me that I've always found helpful, I wonder if I usually erase stuff. I'm trying to think if I've got any, probably not like great examples here, but like most everything, like even like this Akuma, right? When I drew this Akuma, I drew his shoulder. Oh, I'm not even looking at my iPad anymore. Oops. Like when I drew this Akuma, his left arm, we don't see it, right? We just see a fist. But I drew originally very foreshortened the chest. I remember drawing this part, like, let me pop in. Like, I remember distinctly doing this one because I remember doing it where I had, oh my God, that's a huge brush. Holy crap. But I remember drawing and thinking, okay, if the chest is here, I had drawn the shoulder a little bit like this, or I think the shoulder was up here, right? And then I had drawn out the bicep, and then the way that it would be foreshortened for that. Do you know what I mean? Like I drew the shoulder, drew the bicep, and then drew the foreshortened arm. So like doing that kind of stuff, understanding where, thank you, I appreciate it. I find most joy in doing line art. Like there's something really satisfying about it for me, doing those thick, chunky shadows and lines. But yeah, so like with everything, always think of it as a whole picture, not as just what we're seeing. Think of what we're not seeing and how that guides the other parts of the body, right? So always just keeping that kind of stuff in mind helps form what you're going to look at. But looking back at your piece, this is clean. I like, this is definitely, you've got a lot of potential. I can see a lot of cool stuff. I'd say I know it's a more anime style. One thing I like to do, this is random tidbit of information. When I do like, let me pull up this one. So it's hard to see, right? But like on my here, what I like to do is, I can't remember the name of it, but if you notice here, we've got shadow and then a very peachy color and then the standard color of the skin, right? And it's when you go from shadow to like when you have like those hard cuts, adding in, even if it's soft or however, a little bit of a warm color like this, like the darker peach, helps sell skin to be skin. Obviously, you've got an anime vibe going on right now. You don't have to do that. Like, I'm not saying you have to, but just something that comes to mind when seeing, like, because since you've got very solid darks and lights, sometimes even in anime style stuff, giving that thin little in between, or soft brush in between, helps differentiate skin from cloth, right? Like, so I don't do it on the cloth, right? It just goes from highlight to shadow to highlight to shadow. But on the skin, I like to have a little bit more warmth in the transitions of shadows just because it helps sell it as skin more so. But yeah, no, I would say keep what you're doing, really just study up on the anatomy, and I think that would go a long way. I really like the fact that one of the things I see a lot of times with student work is their understanding of light. Subsurface scattering is kind of the subsurface scattering is the peach that appears like the red. Subsurface scattering is kind of like, imagine your ear, right? That is what that is. Technically, it's, hold on. The Terminator line. So here we go. So like right here, do you see how this person here is not the most attractive visual of this person? But like, do you see how there is like this color? Obviously, this is extremely intense because it's a very bright sunlight, but that is the Terminator line, right? Yeah, I believe the technical term is Terminator line. It's the distinct line between the shaded object and the natural color. And so subsurface scattering is more so like on here, I have, if we look on, if we go to the drawing here, like subsurface scattering is more of like, do you see how I have like this little bit of red? So subsurface scattering is when the blood can be seen through thin parts of the skin generally. So like that's why your ear, I talked about it a while ago, the ear has a lot of like reds and stuff. It's the subsurface scattering that exists because you can see the blood and the difference within the skin cells. Yeah, reds definitely help. So like this is a good example right here. Like obviously stream doesn't show it too well because it gets, you know, condensed, but like this is a flat color, and then I just add that little bit of reds to the skin, right? Just a little bit sometimes. It doesn't need, even if it's a very distinct colorful style, like graphic style, giving a little bit of red to the skin, and then when needed, doing that Terminator line helps things become alive, right? Like it goes from being a normal flat color to all of a sudden you're like, oh, this actually feels like a piece of reality. Like it feels like it's living. It feels like it can exist in space. So I definitely like adding those in. Because the skin is one thing, it helps it sell it to feel real, right? So if we're working on a piece that like you have the differentiation between skin and material, you really want to sell it, right? Here, what I do too, sometimes this is silly. I color pick sometimes just so I've got, because right there I was changing colors a lot. Just so I've got like, okay, this is kind of the highlight color that I'm working with, and this is the base, just so when things get kind of muddied, I have like a weird little palette usually that comes from way back when you actually paint in real life. You would do that. You just kind of have your blocks and you can kind of mix your colors and stuff, but having it there helps me, and that kind of helps too. Like even in talking of the reds, when you do reds, maybe save the red, right? Like whatever red you find works, or, you know, peachish red, like put it on the side of your palette as you're working. So if you need to reference it again and use it, like, oh, I could use a little more here. It'll probably have been, you know, very opaque, very whatever. But if you have the base color actually saved at your side, it's easier to pull from. Just random tidbits of productivity there. Because again, going through the reps, when you mess something up 1,000 times, you learn how to not mess it up a little bit. A little bit. Not saying you never do. You will, but a little less. So I think that works for the highlights right now on the pink, right? Or the purple. Let's do a little bit, since we're talking about skin. I did like that soft red, right? So now on the skin, we're going to pull her skin tone, right? And go a little warmer. So highlights generally are warmer, right? And shadows are generally cooler. Rule of thumb. So basically, like going towards blue or going towards red is usually kind of my rule. And let's lighten it a little bit and let's see how this color looks, right? Oops, what brush do I have even? Okay. Is that bright enough? Maybe I need to go a little bit warmer, a little bit lighter. Okay. Again, trying a new thing, right? Being softer with everything I'm doing. So this is weird for me to do this soft of lighting, but as I'm zooming in on her butt, but it's important, like I said, to you're never gonna find your own way of making a mark if you don't change the way you do stuff all the time. Because if you kind of like force yourself into a way that you think is what you should be doing, it's never gonna work. You have to keep exploring, keep trying different things. Otherwise, you're just gonna keep. Unfortunately, you just keep failing then. Like if you keep trying to make one specific thing work, it's never gonna work and it's not gonna feel natural. So even though I don't like changing how I do stuff all the time here on stream, I do like that it helps me grow. Not art related then, Delinquent. You mentioned Rivals too. Who do you play? Like what kind of characters do you play? Iron Man DPS, Groot tank, and Cloak and Dagger for strategists. All right, not bad. Don't mind me, I'm just eating. I've got a handful of little Dove chocolates, dark chocolates. I munch on stream because I'm a gremlin. And it helps me not be super hungry because it's lunchtime. Groot tank is fun. Groot tank at the lower levels though, like lower ranks, it's kind of hard. Just because you need to really be careful. You're looking at another piece and obviously you're color picking, yeah. Color is something that just takes time, like I said. Everything takes time. But the more you experiment on your own with it, the better you'll get at it, obviously. But with everything, just like in Marvel Rivals, right? You're not going to become Grandmaster right away, right? You got to get better at the game. You got to learn what you're doing. You got to see. You have to study your own. Like even in video games, right? You study your own plays, right? You look at the VODs. You see what works, what didn't work. And you keep practicing and get better. I'm just going to spam more and more. Okay. So more of like a... Ooh, I like the way the folds are fun, though. This feels very... I think Bern Hogarth, kind of like an old instructional artist that I read a lot of stuff on. But yeah, like this is a prime example, yeah, of like naturally our brain is analytical on color, right? Like we see things pretty... Like our brain wants to say, yes, black shirt is black, right? Or skin is peach, right? Peach skin is peach. But like, that is a perfect example of where like maybe you could have introduced, everything has light, right? Like everything around us, no matter where you exist, light exists, right? And that's how we see colors, is whatever light is hitting that color. And so if you've got an all black suit like this gentleman in this drawing you've done, yes, it will be black and white, but it would also maybe In the shadows, then maybe it'd be more of like a purplish bluish shadow, right? Just slightly. Not saying you make it blue, but you give like a little bit of blues to the shadow, right? To help round it out. Or same thing with the skin. Obviously, the skin has a lot of reds and blues in it that people usually don't, especially if you're doing a study like this. Like, obviously, if I'm doing a cartoony graphic thing, I'm not maybe going to put in as much variation. But if you're doing like a study, really look at the colors and think of it, like of how those colors exist in space. So don't always think of the color, but actually see it, you know? Like if it looks more red or if it looks more blue, make it more blue. Like actually paint it that color and it will help feel like that shape or feel like that color more because like this, while the folds look good and the shading is pretty solid in a lot of spaces, and I do like the hard contrast of some of these really dark darks. I do feel like some of them are a little too dark, then we're getting a little lost. But like in the dark areas of his legs here, I would definitely like creep in some base tones and highlights just to make it feel a little bit more real. But yeah, I think your big thing here is maybe focusing heavily on color more and how the color really exists in space. Because again, I'm not saying you're wrong in thinking it because like, that's just where our brains go. We're like, red is red, blue is blue, black is black. But the reality is we've got so many colors and so many colors that exist because of the light around it. So like I'll do like on this piece even, right? The goal is to do like a pink dagger, right? Her blade coming out of her hand. And so that will then emit its own light. So then I'm going to have a pink glow actually hitting like this side of her body then, like all around here. Because everything is a reflection of the lights around it. And no light is actually just white in nature. But no, that looks, again, yeah. Yeah, all the light sources you have to account for. Like, and even like even right here on me right now, I've got lights, right? On my face, the streaming, like the big photo lights. They're not white lights, right? Like this one on this side is actually on my right side is a slightly blue light, right? And the one up there is a red light. Because when it hits my body, it balances the colors better, right? That's my problem. Studying is tough when you don't really know why you're doing it. Yeah, like that's one thing too that like I know there's so many artists and I hated this advice growing up. And I know I just said it a little bit ago, but they draw. And that's true. That is super true, right? 1,000% true. Early on, sometimes it does help to just draw a lot, right? Just keep at it. Just keep doing things, keep making art. Just be sure you're drawing, right? But it gets to a point where a point of diminishing returns, right? Where as you're just drawing to draw a lot, you're losing out on like why you're even doing it. And once you get to that point, then you need to focus on doing studies and understand like what doesn't work and what does work, which is why, like I said, I would love to be able to grow and have like the channel and build up like a Discord and stuff like that where we can talk about this stuff. Cause I know growing up, that's when I was doing art early on. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And so how do you study that, right? And so having another person just point out a couple things here and there, as little as it might be, can go a long way because suddenly you have a goal, right? You've got something to focus on. You've got an idea of where you need to look, even if it's not like the most clear-cut thing, you have at least an idea, a jumping off point, just like the poses I talked about, right? Like having a jumping off point sometimes is really good because even on stream here, I showed you those couple of things. I study on stream, right? Like I will purposefully study things and I try and learn on stream as I do stuff to kind of showcase how my brain works and how you need to break down what you're seeing and how you're actually learning it, not just regurgitating, right? I feel like a lot of school is regurgitation. Well, yes, I hope you stick around. Yeah, stick around, keep up, and we can. I'm always, like I said, hopefully looking to grow more. Oh, I actually don't have my alert set up. I just got a thing on my phone. I saw you gave a good follow. So thank you. I hope you do stick around. Hope you pop back. Right now, the plan I've been doing is Monday, Wednesday, Fridays in the mornings. That might change as time goes on, but I do like keeping it consistent. Yeah, the Terminator line, that lighting is something that like no, like there's certain things that I feel like get lost, and I feel like from an educational perspective, there's just a lot there. And to be fair, if we're talking about visuals, there are so much going on in the world visually. Like, how do you, there's no way you can teach it all. Like, I don't blame anybody or any school or anything, but it's just, that's what's important too, is finding multiple people and multiple sources, right? If you learn everything from one book, well, you're only going to know what that book taught, right? If you learn everything from one teacher, you're only going to know what that teacher knew, right? But if you can find people and you get 5% from this person, 5% from this person, 10% from this person, so on and so forth, you build a bigger library of what you know and what you need to know, rather than just sticking with, one individual source of information. Don't mind me just giving a big butt highlight right now, just to give a little shine, some cheeky shine. But so case in point, as we were talking about reds, I want to throw in some shadows right now because I put in this basic shadow, right? This basic subsurface. But now I feel like I definitely need a little bit deeper of a red, right? So I keep right here. Do you see my palette? Obviously my head's over it kind of, but like there's a palette here I have of all different skin tones that I keep saved. Here, can I pop my head? Boop. See, so like all the different skin tones. Super helpful. Because then sometimes I just need to be like, well, based off of this, I think maybe, like, what about this red? Would this look good? No, I don't like it. But like you can kind of at least play off of that. That said, I'm just going to color pick and then go myself. So I'll go a little, since we're going, I almost want some more blue, since we were just talking about that. But like, we'll add blue later actually, but we're going to go a little darker and a little cooler. Don't like that either. Maybe we will stick with that one red over here. Let's go real red at first and then reel it back. And here's a good example where I'm going to put red, but then later I'm going to include a little bit of blue. Maybe not on this stream because it's getting late, but it's not all just one value, one color, right? I'll need to have to adjust. And so don't mind how lazy this looked. About hues and say, yeah, once learning color is a whole thing in its own right. I've got, is it James Gurney? I can't remember. I'll be right back. Like literally right back. I'm going to the office. Okay, I lied. I can't find that book. I have so many books. I don't think it's in here either. Um, Gurney painting. I think it's Gurney. James Gurney book. It must be either downstairs, color and light. This is an interesting book for sure. Color and Light. Where do I go? Chatting. This one. This is definitely an interesting book. I had this many. It's an old book now. But James Gurney did like Dinotopia and all these things when, like, way back when. Um, but this was a good book. I really liked this breakdown of how color and light worked. Obviously, this is for more of like a realistic painting stuff and all that. But this is, I have this book. It must just be in the basement somewhere. Again, I've got too many books, too many things. But just thinking of color and light and hues and saturations and stuff like that, that is definitely a good one for sure. But anyway, back to shout out to painters, right? Painting, like legit painting, oof, that's a whole other thing, man. That is. I did some in school when I was younger, right? Some like painting, but like I am much more I always liked charcoal and pastels and that kind of stuff. It just made more sense to me, I guess. Painting's tough. And even here now as I'm doing stuff, like, it's not easy. Case in point, as we're just talking about how much work goes into it. Ooh, that is really dark. But at least understanding the basics of it. You know, you don't need to be an exceptional, like, amazing painter, but you have to at least understand color well enough that you can, you know, make it work. So right here, normally I would be blocking off by color, but I'm actually drawing over the purples and I'm being more messy, and it's okay. I'll erase some of it because it is a little, like, I'll go back later and erase it. Right? Like, having those reds really do change it. And so, like, it's a little harsh right now, the reds, but making skin look like skin is really, really important. Because everybody, again, we talked about that, like, your brain goes, yeah, skin is skin tone. But, like, skin tone means a lot of things. It's not just peach. It's not just red exactly. It's not just the whites. It's a lot of these combinations of things that go into it. But yeah, making skin look alive really, I feel like that is what changes from beginner to, like, the more you, like, a beginner artist, I feel like almost always their skin has this like dead nature to it. It's got the Funko popping, right? Like those Funko Pop eyes, right? Funko Pops feel so dead. At least the old ones, especially. Whereas, like, you need to breathe life into it. And I feel like that's kind of the thing with, like, with the skin. Is like, you just need to be sure you're breathing life into it. Otherwise, you're drawing corpses, right? You're drawing Funko Pop dead eyes. You need to have some nice warms and cools. And it's funny, like I said, as I'm using this as an example, this is far from how I normally paint anyway. So it's funny that I'm trying to teach it in a non-standard way of how I normally paint. But it works, man. It works. Because again, the fundamentals and the foundations of how stuff work is universal. It doesn't need to be crazy different. Like, like I said, once you understand generally how color and shadow and values work, even if I'm doing it in a way that I normally don't traditionally draw or paint, the idea still is the same, right? So case in point with style, that, like, understanding the way things are done is far more important than understanding your own style of doing them. Because the fundamentals can apply to any way of making marks. It's just how you're feeling that day. Or if you're doing it professionally, obviously you need to abide by the style of the project. I like this approach. It's one of those things where, like, every time I do, as I've been streaming, doing new ways of doing it, I like it, but I don't always use it. if that makes sense. Like I said, I'll use it for now, and then I kind of fold in some of the ways of doing it. So I might not keep up this way always, but I will maybe take into account the way I like the softer, like I do like the way that this toothiness is coming across with this smudgy brush, right? So maybe that's what I'll take away, and that's cool with me, you know? But like, yeah, I've been like, even I tried watercolor stuff with Jeff, right? Like I tried some watercolors with Jeff not too long ago, even just trying all different styles, or even more of the comic booky one, right? More of a watercolor. But yeah, this is like I said, so I use a lot. I couldn't even tell you how many Procreate brushes I own now at this point. I usually buy stuff from other artists and then I change them myself. So like none of them are necessarily the exact brush that, you know, the artist intended per se, but it's the brush I kind of tweak to my liking eventually. But yeah, so I ended up putting them all here. So I don't remember, that was a Max brush. So Max Pack, he does a lot of stuff like that, and it's just the toothy gouge brush for that I've been using for this kind of like little bit of texture here and kind of blending just a little bit like that to kind of, again, I like that it's like just a little toothy. It feels more realistic, but still fits. Like I like the idea. If there's one thing I can talk about taking away, right, is I like having this realistic approach of painting, kind of, where it's not like super hyper realistic, but it's kind of has a little bit of that energy. But then with my like really graphic, like cartoon lines, right? Like I love these cartoony lines, these thick lines. So that's what I personally have been trying to find a marriage of painterly and comic booky. That's a fine line. Yeah, like some of this gets really lost though, because since I didn't block off my colors, this looks ugly. Like some of these, like the red here on the purple looks really weird. But that's fine. That's something you can always fix in post after. I just didn't feel like breaking it up right now as I was being a little more organic with my colors. But certain parts here look really ugly. Some parts I need to get rid of because that's too much red on this purple here. This is looking pretty dark. Give a little bit of an erase. Just lighten it up here. Like this is something I usually don't work with is, yeah, like this soft eraser. Like this feels funny doing like these soft little erase. I'm very much hard round, erase, erase, erase. Where is this highlight coming from? Oh, wrong layer. Looks like her hand needs a little bit more of these warm colors too. Oh yeah, 100%. That's one of the trappings, right? Is you it's so easy digitally to just zoom in, right? And you get lost when you're zoomed in too much and you just keep hyper focusing on the thing you're working on. And then you make it look great and then you zoom out and you're like, well, son of a gun, that was a half hour of me zoomed in and now it looks like hot doo-doo I did not realize. Like it doesn't fit. And so what's cool is when I stream, especially because normally on Photoshop, the way I do it is I have like the navigator on the top right so I can always see it zoomed out. I can't do that necessarily here on Procreate. You can, but there's not a lot of real estate on your screen on the iPad, so I don't want to do it. But sometimes what I'll do is I'll zoom out and then I'm actually looking at it even smaller because I look at it on my Twitch feed. So I've got like my OBS running that's doing the recording. And so I zoom out here and it's even smaller on my other screen then. So if you see, I'm like looking down and then I'll look over at it because it's even smaller of a thumbnail and I can see how does it read at like a very small distance. Because you kind of need to squint at stuff. And if it doesn't look right when you're squinting, you probably did something wrong. At least for like colors and stuff like that. But yeah, learning to zoom out is a skill that I feel like everybody gets lost. Like I always will be like, oh crap, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. So I try and make it habit as much as I can to always be looking at the bigger picture. But it is very easy to get distracted, you know. My rule is like I try and like almost after, which seems a little obnoxious, but after like every major thing I do, like every time I finish like a set of strokes, I usually boop, pop back, okay, boop, pop back. You know, like it's a constant back and forth to make sure it looks good. Okay. Well, we're getting pretty late. I know I actually usually only stop at 1:30. Has been my general timeline, but I've been liking where this piece has been going. I've had nice conversation, of course, too, and so I've just been kind of running with it, but it is getting pretty late, and I got a lot of stuff I need to get done outside of this still today, including just eat. My stomach has been grumbling. Normally my body eats around 2:30 or 1:30, so my belly's like, "Hey, where's that thing we call food?" And I'm like, "Shut up. You'll get it in a little bit. It's drawing time." I'm definitely hitting a hungry spot, but I want to at least kind of block in a little bit of the face here. Yeah, I need to, and it's a nice Valentine's Day today, so I gotta make sure I've got time for all the fun stuff with that. Like I talked about earlier, we already went to dinner and did all that kind of stuff the other day, but normally we go to the gym on Valentine's Day still, but I don't know. The gym we've been going to closed, and now it's like a crappy gym we have to go to. No fun. But yeah, now I got lost in doing this. I want to give a little bit more shadow to her, and then I'll call it. Then I'll call it quits. My lunch of just a giant bowl of protein and PB2 almond milk and frozen bananas. What an exciting fella I am always with my overly weird protein meals. All right, yeah, I need to call it. My stomach's rumbling. That's a little dark actually, but oh no, I say that and now I'm like, that's too dark. I can't leave it looking too dark. Holy crap, wrong brush. Let me lighten it just a smidge. And then I'll allow myself to go eat. Okay. I'm calling it. I'll paint more next week. I thought I'd finish her this stream. I definitely didn't, but you know what? I'm slow, and that's okay. We got no timelines we need to hit, so it'll look good. As long as it's looking good, that's all that matters. So I do my thumbnails, right? Because since this goes on YouTube too. So I do all my thumbnails and all that, and it's funny, I've gotten in the habit now of being like, oh, I need to do a thumbnail image. What do I do? It's Valentine's Day, right? So do we do a heart? I'm old. What's the other way? This is how I used to do hearts, right? But I feel like there's like some other way people do hearts now. Is it like this, right? I'm weird. I don't know. I can't. The finger heart. Yeah, I feel like an idiot trying to do this because I'm trying to look at myself on camera too. Boom. Finger. Is that it? This looks wrong. Am I doing it wrong? I don't want to look up finger heart. That sounds weird. I'm not Googling finger heart. I'd rather not. Cool kid heart. That's not a heart. Oh my god. What am I? Okay, I am gonna Google it because I'm just yeah, never mind. I'm doing my old heart. I'm old. Hearts. Look at that thumbnail. Beautiful. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, Kalinquent, I appreciate you sticking around so much. I know we've got I saw a couple other pops of people following earlier too. I appreciate everybody stopping by. Hope you guys have a good weekend coming up ahead. Nice and relaxing. If you're here in the Midwest, stay warm because it's absolutely freezing cold right now. But yeah, I'll be here Monday. I hope to see you there. And until then, be kind and kick butt.